And others of politically appointed advisors too from the former UK ambassador to Washington have been made public for the first time by the government under pressure from the Conservatives, and it's been an embarrassing read for many of them.
The second batch of Mandelson files have been released, and they're very embarrassing for the government, and Sir Keir Starmer will bring you the full details. All right, well, stay with me. I'm Nana Akwe. This is The Late Show Live. Welcome to The Late Show Live. Joining me this evening in London is my panel of GB News contributors. That is comedian Leo Kearse, political commentator Matthew Stadlin, and former advisor in Number 10 Downing Street, Robert Midgley. And in Washington, D.C., our US political analyst Eric Ham, and also US political reporter for the Daily Mail, Victoria Churchill. Thank you for joining me. All right, let's talk about our main news this evening. The killer of 18-year-old Henry Novak has been jailed today for 21 years after a shocking knife attack that claimed the life of the Southampton student. Henry was walking home after a night out with friends when he was stabbed 5 times with a 21-inch ceremonial blade by Vikram Digwa. But as Henry lay fatally wounded, Digwa falsely claimed that he'd been racially abused, leading officers to initially detain the teenager before they realised that he was the victim and not the suspect. GB News' South of England reporter Isabel Fekulak joins us now from Southampton Crown Court. This was the latest.
Yes, the emotions inside that courtroom extremely high as that sentence was handed down to Vikram Digwa, 23-year-old Sikh man who has been given life imprisonment with a minimum term of 21 years. Now, inside the courtroom, we heard many impact statements from Henry's mother, Henry's father, his stepmother, stepfather, and his sister. I'll read you out some very powerful lines from within those statements. His father said that the thought of him lying in the road, scared, bleeding to death, will haunt him forever, and that he has been tormented by not knowing exactly what happened that night, desperately searching for answers. He says, as a family, they have all been given a life sentence, and that they have resilience and determination to fight for Henry and to see justice done. Hopefully some of that justice done today as we watched Vikram Digwa be whisked off in a van to carry out his life sentence. Henry Novak's mother as well speaking in court, saying that the circumstances were so tragic and unimaginable that the pain is above anything she ever knew existed. Again, saying that no sentence handed down will ever bring Henry back. His stepmom described how Henry's 6-year-old sibling is terrified that the person who killed Henry will break into their house and kill them all. She talked about the agonising pain of living the rest of her life without her darling Henry. His sister spoke in court as well. She looked at Digwa in the eye and told him that if you'd have known Henry, you would have never hurt him. And Digwa, throughout these statements being read, showed no expression, showed no remorse. His father, Henry Novak's father, came outside court after the sentence was handing down and spoke to the press. He said that he is calling for the Home Secretary to ensure and the IOPC, the Independent Office of Police Conduct, have all the resources to do a full and transparent investigation, calling on the government as well to treat knife crime as a national emergency. A very powerful speech. Take a look at what else he said.
Henry told officers that he could not breathe 9 times. He told them he had been stabbed 4 times. The response from one officer was, "I don't think you have, mate." The police have said they were misled by the murderer and that the scene when they arrived was complex. Unfortunately, it seems to us the truth is much simpler.
Well, of course, police handed themselves into the Independent Office for Police Conduct immediately after the incident. They said that it took them 3 minutes to administer first aid. They apologised for Henry Novak, handcuffing Henry Novak in the moments before he died. The judge, Judge William Mosley, KC, today said that Vikram Digwa's lie, that it was that he was racially attacked by Henry Novak. He confirmed that there was no evidence to back that. He said that he is sure Henry had said nothing racist and that the jury entirely rejected that defence, and he does too. He told Digwa, "You have brought shame upon your family, your community and your religion." Vikram Digwa sentenced today at Southampton Crown Court for a life imprisonment minimum term of 21 years.
So that was Isabel Fekulak earlier outside Southampton Crown Court. And tonight police have released body camera footage of Henry Novak's last moments. And before we play it for you, a warning that this is highly distressing footage.
My dad's holding it now. Right. He keeps dropping side to side, so I'm just trying to keep him set up.
Right.
He's got a mouthful of blood. I don't want him.
He was on the bin on the other side of this gate.
He's jumped over these fences and stuff like that. And he's up here.
Move away, mate.
He's obviously fallen from there and he slipped from there.
His other shoe is left over there, mate.
What's your name, mate? Huh? Has anyone been hurt other than him?
Yeah, me.
He's grabbed my brother. He's took my turban off. Started grabbing my head.
Are you injured?
Yeah, I've got swollen eye, little bruises.
Alright, just step back a little bit for me. Someone flag these down.
Well, we won't be showing you the full footage, the entire piece, having already broadcast it, but I can tell you that later he is then handcuffed, that is Henry, despite telling police that he had been stabbed. One police officer replied, "I don't think so, mate," just after he tells them, "I can't breathe." Henry is told his rights and he is placed under arrest. Of course, they dragged him around by his leg, which, as we understand, he was also stabbed there, one in each leg. We can also show you some of the 999 call made to the police. Again, a warning that this is highly distressing footage.
Police emergency.
Yeah, we just been attacked by someone racially. Yeah, this.
Right.
He just attacked Vic, took his starter. Sorry? Huh? Sorry, we just got attacked racially by some white person.
Right, okay. Whereabouts are you?
We're on Belmont Road.
Just out in the street, are you?
Sorry?
You're just in the street?
Yeah, literally, I just parked up my car to come home and he's attacked my brother.
Right, well, of course, the full 3 minutes, which we did show earlier in Patrick Christie's programme earlier, they sort of seem to stop the footage at the point where I suspect they claim they helped Henry, although I'm wondering why they didn't show that. Joining me in London is my panel, GBNews contributor and comedian Leo Kearse, political commentator Matthew Stadlen, and former government advisor Robert Midgley. All right, Leo Kearse, I will come to you first and ask your comments, your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I'm not sure that that's what happened after the footage stopped. We know that police receive what's essentially anti-white training. They get trained in anti-racism, but they're told that racism is something that can only happen to somebody who's not white. So essentially the training is anti-white. And as part of this training, they're taught about white privilege and white fragility. And they're taught that, you know, racism is the paramount thing that you must watch out for. That's why the murderer's brother, when he phones the police, immediately says racism, because he knows that's a call that's going to immediately set the police. They're going to panic. It's the only thing that somebody in the public sector can really get arrested for. And we repeatedly see this sort of fear of racism killing British people, like at the Manchester Arena bombing, where the security guard didn't stop the bomber because he was afraid of being accused of racially profiling, even though, you know, racially profiling might make sense in suicide bombing attacks.
Grooming gangs. Grooming
gangs, again. There's so many cases of this. So, I mean, although how the police treat this poor young man, like barely a man, 18 years old. I mean, absolutely horrific that such a vulnerable young man is treated not just by society but by the authorities like this. it might seem bizarre to see people being so inhumane to somebody who's clearly in need and is clearly hurt and is repeatedly telling them that they're hurt. But this is what they're trained. This is what they're trained. This is what all the public sector are trained on. White fragility, white privilege, white people can't be victims of racism. If there's any dispute between people of different ethnicities, then it's the white person that's at fault.
Now, you have some background in working alongside the police, so you know a lot of this. What is it that you did at some point in your career? Because you told me about.
So as a criminal intelligence analyst.
Right. So you know quite a bit about how the police operate.
Yeah, and I've been on a lot of this kind of training myself.
Oh, right, OK. See, now, this is what I get really angry at, this kind of training, because it's actually quite insulting to people of colour, because we didn't make up this training. It's come from liberal, white people. It's not really created by people of colour. And so I don't understand why there's this obsession with this sort of training. I'll go to you, Matthew Stadlin.
I just don't know anything about police training, I'm afraid. I'm not an expert on police training. Watching that footage is truly horrific. I watched it, the fuller piece before we came on air. You watch it as a human being, you watch it as a father in my case. And I watched the speech of the father of Henry Nowak as well, outside the court. And saw his sister and his mother, and you can't really, there are no real words, are there, to describe what they're going through. So, as far as the reaction of the police is concerned, what we know is that the IOPC, that this has been referred by the police force concerned to the IOPC, as the reporter was saying, and that needs to be looked at extremely carefully. And it seems on the face of it, catastrophic mistakes were made by the officers at the scene, although they were clearly misled, as we've also seen, into believing that this was that the victim was the aggressor.
But how stupid do you have to be? Because I have been on certain training as well, so first aid and things like that, which the police would all go on. Of course they would. And I was always told that it's the quiet ones that you need to go for and watch in a crisis. So if there's a road accident or anything like that, it's the people who aren't making the noise that you need to go and check on. So that is something that little me, was taught when I was doing some sort of training around the police and all that kind of thing. So I don't get why they have become so desensitised that they wouldn't think to at least check the person who's lying almost underneath a car, actually.
Yeah, look, when something as horrific as this happens, and we are now all witnesses to at least part of it with what we've just seen, and there is more footage, as you've said, that was shown earlier on the channel but is also available online, then clearly very serious consequences need to occur. And if the police have been found to have acted in a way that is negligent, then there will be obviously repercussions. And if there are wider lessons to be learned, because we've got to be careful not to just besmirch whole police forces, or indeed more than just one police force, police around the country.
But this is institutional.
Well, that's your claim. The police do unbelievably, rank and file police do unbelievably dangerous and brave stuff. No, I want to make that point, but that really is important. But if there are lessons to be learned from this, as I suspect
I just hate that phrase.
That's just a phrase that is. What other phrase do you want me to use? If there are lessons to be learned from this, then if there's been any criminal negligence, which I suspect there hasn't, but if it has, then that's obviously for prosecutors and the police to determine. What I'm trying to say is there are no silver linings to this cloud, because the cloud over this family and the loss of this young man, 18-year-old's life, that's just incalculable. However, if there are ways in which the police in this country can and need to improve, and we know that there are in all sorts of ways, then let us hope that this is at least the catalyst for that.
All right, Robert Midgley.
Yeah, I mean, I have never been so disgusted in our police force in my entire life. You know, out of everything that's happened across the years, I've never seen such a disgraceful event of how the police have carried something out. I've had lots of contacts, I have colleagues in the police force, and they know there's a problem. They know there's a problem across all the police forces, that they're taught this ideology, and you know, a lot of them are leaving right now. They know there's a problem. They don't want to be part of that. They're looking upwards and seeing that the problem's coming from the top. It's being taught downwards. And as we've seen in this case, I don't really want to call it a case because it makes it sound less humane, but you know, police have become desensitized to this sort of thing, and we have witnessed that. And that, I mean, just looking at that footage, Nana, where he said 9 times that he had been... Someone said to you, you'd been stabbed 9 times. You would check, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
You would help them up
if they
and
said
check
they couldn't breathe.
If they had, especially if they're saying they couldn't breathe, what, 5 times? You would check that first before dragging them away and putting handcuffs on them.
And then reading them their rights.
Yeah.
There appears to be a catastrophic, from what we've seen, there's an investigation to come, but it's important to make that point. There seems to be a catastrophic failure by the police involved.
The problem
we should also say, by the way, very quickly, Nana, that the father of Henry Nowak made the point in his speech that police officers who helped deliver justice for their son and the conviction of the killer did a brilliant job. Now, that's the sort of job we should expect of them, of course, but
that's what they're paid to do.
Indeed.
That's what they're paid to do. Look, I do agree with you, and I think it is important to stress that, you know, the police do a really difficult job. In those circumstances, you have to make a decision. But I just feel that it was unjustified. The way they dragged him from under the car, unjustified. I think it was unjustified the way they handcuffed him. Why? He's on the floor. He's hardly going to run away. He's told you that he can't breathe. I think it was 9 times. He said that he's been stabbed 4 times. So he told you that he has had 4 stab marks somewhere. You do a little check, and then you say, no, I don't think so, mate. I just don't understand why the footage, we have 3 minutes of it, just about 3 minutes, where it ends and then we don't see any more. So I think it's really important that we see what happened after that, because if the police did turn round and assist Henry and do everything they claim they did within the time, because remember, the reason, their justification is that even if the ambulance had arrived, they say Henry would have died. But that is determined on actually how long all of that took. So what happened when that footage stopped? Did they go inside the house and talk for a bit? Did something else happen? Did they spend more time? Or did they immediately try and help and then start calling an ambulance? So I think it's really important that we find out what exactly happened after those 3 minutes and whether it did indeed take such a short space of time and that they immediately went to assist, because I don't know why they stopped the footage at that point. I would have thought that you would then show your compassion and show that you did try and do something. Well, of course, Keir Starmer posting on X, he said this is an awful, shocking case. Henry's loved ones have gone through the trauma of a long trial and endured Henry's killer making up appalling claims about their son, who was thoughtful, kind and deeply loved. Is it right that the IOPC is investigating the police's response to his senselessness and murder? And we must end the cycle of tragedy by tackling the horror of knife crime. Henry's family, friends, his university and the city of Southampton will continue to feel his loss, and our thoughts will always be with them. All right, well, stay with us. We've got loads more to come. We will be discussing this in more detail with our US commentators after the break. Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, though. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From court mornings
to warm family brunches.
From football to tennis in the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it? We're here again to start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
When police arrived, Henry was lying on the floor, barely able to sit up and plainly in severe medical distress. Henry told officers that he could not breathe 9 times. He told them he had been stabbed 4 times. He lost consciousness before anyone believed him. We hold Vikram Digwa solely and 100% responsible for the brutal murder of our son. But Henry should not have died on the streets of Southampton in police custody.
Well, this is the Late Show Live, and that was Mark Novak, that's Henry Novak's father, speaking outside of the court moments after his son's killer was sentenced. We're led to believe that minutes before that, the killer's family accused the Novaks of being racist. And that's right, just moments after Vikram Digwa was sentenced for stabbing Henry Novak to death, the murderer's family accused the victim's family of being racist. But I also want to remind you of something that Henry's father said. He said that his son told police he couldn't breathe. It is a chilling echo of the death of George Floyd in the US, which sparked protests and riots across the world. Well, let's talk to my panel in the US, and we've got joining me US political analyst Eric Ham and also US political reporter for the Daily Mail, Victoria Churchill. Eric Ham, I'll start with you. A lot of people are putting some parallels with George Floyd because, of course, George Floyd's last words or the last moments, he said he couldn't breathe. What's your response to what you've seen here?
Well, I think that's probably where the parallels end. We have to remember here in the U.S., it was a police officer, a representative of the state that was actually enacting the killing. This, what took place there, is completely something different. Oftentimes what we see is police, doing their jobs and oftentimes struggling with trying to ascertain what exactly is happening. And so while I think there is certainly room for critique of what the police did, I think we have to make sure the onus is on the culprit and not necessarily those who were simply arriving to the scene with very little information about what took place.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's quite a fair assessment. And I do agree with you in terms of George Floyd. I mean, he was a career criminal who he'd done some unspeakable things, and he was doing something bad at the time that he was arrested.
Well, I don't know
but
if
nobody
that
deserves.
means that he should have actually been killed as a result.
That's what I'm saying. I'm just getting to that.
His career activities. I think what we see at the moment, he was not engaged in any criminal activity. Again, you had a member of the state who was actually had his knee on his neck and killed him. And of course, it was caught on tape. And at the time, there was nothing illegal about what George Floyd was doing other than simply existing.
Yeah, well, I was just getting to that bit, actually, Eric, to be fair to me. But yeah, I'm getting to that. But nobody deserves to be executed in that manner by the police at all, or executed in that manner by anybody, actually. So the police were absolutely out of order on that. And I do agree, the parallels end at the point where the comment, "I can't breathe," was made. But the point is that when somebody tells you they can't breathe, it might be worth paying attention to that. Victoria, your thoughts?
Well, thank you so much, Nana. Of course, first off, my thoughts go out to the family. This is an absolute tragedy that they should in no way be dealing with. But I also want to point that, in the U.S. we have a pretty stringent standard, which of course is not followed 100% of the time. But the standard is in police encounters that people that say that they're having medical difficulties, it is the job of the police to provide them with medical services, and if they're not able to do that, and if they can't carry out an assessment, it's their job to call EMS services to the scene to provide medical assistance first, and then kind of carry on their law enforcement duties. And of course, this applies not only to physical health, but also to mental health. Anybody that is in police custody, their mental health is also something that is of consideration in incidents with the police. And so, I think it's very interesting to note that Novak apparently, at least based on this footage that we've seen, was not provided the necessary medical attention. Even if police thought that he was the perpetrator, he should have at least been treated as a medical case first and then as a criminal case second.
Now, Eric, I presume you heard what we've been saying. In this country, there seems to be a sort of ideological capture where the police are taught that, white people, in a way, can't be racist and all these kind of things. We do have those teachings in this country. It's a fact that is what's going on. Do you believe that sort of training is contributing to a lack of common sense, really, and just a focus on racial elements rather than actually trying to police the situation?
Well, I think we've seen some of those arguments being made here in the United States. In fact, in many cities across the country, there was a moment where you had people on the left calling for defunding the police, and that became a political staging ground and a huge political moment, of course, that was, I think, something that shaped the 2024 presidential election. But also, I think what it makes clear is law enforcement, policing has become a political flashpoint. And I think what we're seeing here is now you've got police officers who are operating in a politically charged environment while also dealing with matters of life and death. And I think those two issues make for a very difficult landscape for police officers, no matter where they are, when they're trying to simply do their jobs. And of course, we know both their lives as well as the people that they're oftentimes interacting with are on the line.
Victoria, do you think it's kind of time we stopped all this DEI business? I believe there was a time when we needed to educate people on maybe racial disparities. I think there was a moment. But we've got to the point where it's sort of tipped to the other extreme.
I always bring up the case of when I was in college, I was a member of my student senate, and we had African-American students that wanted to have their own black student union or black student government that was separate from the student senate. And, even back then, almost a decade ago, it seemed pretty ironic to me that people, in this country, right, we fought against the concept of separate but equal. And it seemed like some people, particularly that are pushing this DEI mentality and ideology, that they wanted to get back to that idea, which is, what so many of their predecessors, even people that were active in the civil rights movement, pushed to have a unified governance, unified structure of government. And, again, I think that when you look at history, the people that are trying to put America back to where it was, which was not a place of racial equality, that's kind of the problem, is when these ideologies try to create separate, for example, graduations for African American students or even LGBT students. We all have to treat everybody as a unified group. And, of course, people can be individualists within that. America is a nation that is built upon individuality. But I think forced separation by, arbitrary measures, right? Because anytime that you talk about diversity in the U.S., more often than not, it's things like race or, skin color, not necessarily diversity of thought, right? In a lot of these situations, it's only one dominant ideology that exists, and typically conservative students or conservative ideologies are pushed to the wayside. And so, again, that's what I think, people are trying to push diversity of one thing, but it really ends up being a monoculture at the end of the day.
Well, let's bring in my panel as well. GB News contributor and comedian Leo Kearse, political commentator Matthew Stadlen, and former government advisory Robert Midgley. Matthew Stadlen, I'm going to come to you. We were talking a little bit about the DEI, the thing that seems to have captured many institutions. Do you think it's gone too far?
Very difficult to tell unless you do a proper study of it. I think it's obviously important that there isn't racism in any direction in our police forces. We know that there has been a serious and institutionalised problem of racism in our police. It's completely understandable that there's been training to eliminate that. In this particular case, what I think we know is that the police were called to what they thought was a racist crime, and when they turned up, they were far too slow to realise that the victim was not, in fact, the aggressor. And if you watch that heartbreaking footage, which is difficult to watch without tears coming to your eyes, it does seem to be extraordinary that someone slumped on the floor who's telling them that they've been stabbed is not being treated as a medical emergency and is then handcuffed and read his rights. So, as I say, I think there's clearly been, as far as I can see, without knowing the results of any investigation, a catastrophic failure. Whether or not that stems from anti-racism training, I can't possibly tell you. What I can tell you and what I can repeat, this is very important, that our police without fear or favour. They do so even-handedly. And what anti-racism training has been aimed to do is to ensure that happens.
All right, Leo Kearse.
Well, I think this all stems from this idea of the universal human, that everybody from every culture, every background, every ethnicity is going to behave exactly the same. So the police looked at their statistics that showed that they were arresting more of a certain minority for certain crimes, and they decided, well, this must be because we are being racist against these minorities, rather than perhaps deciding that, oh, this ethnic group or this demographic group or these people from this cultural background have a tendency more than the norm to behave in this particular way. And because of that, they put the cart before the horse, and they've assumed that they were, even though they were policing without fear or favour in a lot of cases, they were institutionally racist. And now the work that's being done to combat that non-existent racism has led to the genuine racism that left Henry Novak on the ground bleeding to death, just because his attacker said, he was racist against me. Even when the police were talking about it after the event, the police said, "Oh, we found that he wasn't actually racist," as if Henry Novak being racist would have been a reason to stab him, as if it would have been, anything other than. I mean, the level of importance that is given to racism in the public sector and in society is just insane, and we're seeing the damage it's doing right in front of our eyes.
Yeah, I mean, DEI itself is segregation. It's not inclusivity. It's not equality. It's putting one group in favour of another. It's nowhere near equality. If you want true equality and treat everyone equally, you don't have to have this segregation. You have inclusivity, treat everyone the same, respect people for their talents and not their colour or who they sleep with. I think it's absolutely ridiculous.
I don't want to turn this into a big argument, because I just think it would be wildly inappropriate given the appalling footage that we've all seen, many viewers now will have seen, and absolutely front and centre of this should be Henry and his family. So I'm not going to have some big clash with you, Leah, but what I will say is...
Well, my people are being killed, Matthew, so I'd appreciate if you didn't decide...
Sorry, who are your people? Sorry, who are your people? Are they different from my people? Who are your people? What do you mean?
People of my ethnic background.
No, people in... This person is a British person, an 18-year-old, who was brutally murdered. That's who's been murdered, not your people.
Oh, so I'm not allowed to have a people?
For you to say, Leo, that there was no racism in the police force, which is, I think, what just came out of your mouth, is a truly astonishing thing. It was found that there was institutional racism in the Met Police by a major report. There was a consequence of that.
The McPherson report? Yeah, no,
consequence of the murder of
I was a criminal intelligence analyst.
Right, so you're aware of that.
Following the McPherson report, I saw the damage, the overreaction, the overcorrection from that report.
You certainly don't want overreaction, but you're forgetting, by the way, as well. Or have you heard of Operation Trident? Operation Trident was set up specifically to deal with black-on-black violent crime, gun crime, I think, in the main, but maybe also took in knife crime. The idea that the police have not been alive to the threats that there are, for example, between black young men on other black young men, is obviously and provably wrong.
Okay,
I don't think
we're going to leave it there, because you're talking about Trident, and that's got nothing to do really with this case, and I want to stay focused, as you said, on Henry Novak. Right, still to come on The Late Show Live.
It's been a day of high drama in Westminster today. Messages from Peter Mandelson to members of the government, to officials and others, politically appointed advisors too, from the former UK ambassador to Washington, have been made public for the first time by the government under pressure from the Conservatives, and it's been an embarrassing read for many of them.
Well, the second batch of the Mandelson files have been released, and they're very embarrassing for the government and Sir Keir Starmer. We'll bring you the full details next. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you. Bulletins on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point.
Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, But I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. And now the second release of the Mandelson files dropped earlier. And GB News' political editor Christopher Hope had this report for us.
It's been a day of high drama in Westminster today. Messages from Peter Mandelson to members of the government, to officials and others, politically appointed advisers too, from the former UK ambassador to Washington have been made public for the first time by the government under pressure from the Conservatives, and it's been an embarrassing read for many of them. Lord Mandelson at one point accused Sir Keir Starmer of dodging the media and avoiding all risks ahead of a visit to Washington by the Prime Minister in February last year. Torsten Bell, now a welfare minister, he told the former British ambassador that the big picture was messy in exchange with Lord Mandelson last July. Lord Mandelson, for himself, he said that Wes Streeting, when he was Health Secretary, was having a midlife crisis after a wild, long, hysterical message about Israel. That was in a conversation with Pat McFadden. With Pat McFadden, the current Work and Pension Secretary, told Peter Mandelson that Labour MPs keep asking him, who can we tax in order to pay benefits to others? Peter Mandelson labelled Ed Miliband's behaviour on the net zero issue as being stupid and stresses, I don't think the government has clocked just how central energy supply and costs are to our economic future, referring there to the need for energies to support artificial intelligence and data centres. He also said that the former Transport Secretary Louise Haig's exit from the government was harsh after she quit over a fraud offence. And in fact, the government's slapping of VAT on private school fees, he says, was probably unwise. So lots of embarrassing disclosures here from these documents, but increasingly conversation here in Westminster is going to what don't we know. Now, we do know that Peter Mandelson has not handed over any WhatsApp messages he has got. We are told by sources that that's because he's been advised not to give any evidence over because of the police investigation. But I'm hearing from sources there are further concerns developing now in Whitehall from sources telling me that Sir Keir Starmer and Darren Jones' messages to Peter Mandelson have been withheld. This is because the work phone that Peter Mandelson had when he quit as US ambassador in Washington was handed back to the government, and only the messages which the personal messages have been disclosed that he may have made from a personal phone. Now, Number 10 says that the PM has complied fully with the humble address by providing all information that he holds as required. That information was submitted by the Cabinet Office, and that's where we are. But increasingly, the Tories are saying, what information don't we know? What further has been covered up, if anything? This debate and this row will run and run and run, with another debate due in Parliament tomorrow, Wednesday. Let's hear what the government's got to say then. Christopher Hope for GB News, here in Westminster.
Wow. All right, Christopher, thank you for that one. Joining me now in London, GB News contributor and comedian Leo Kearse, political commentator Matthew Stadlen, and former government advisor Robert Midgley. Robert, we heard some of the things that are in there, and we'll get to those. But in the Mandelson files, you also said that there was quite a bit of Chagos in there too. I know that's one of your specialist subjects. So what has been identified in there about it?
So in Volume 2, it's actually really interesting because it shows how much they rushed the negotiations through, how much they wanted to rush the whole deal through to avoid scrutiny. It's mentioned throughout the messages. It also mentions about Chinese interests as well, that they recognise there were huge Chinese interests for the outer islands, on spying, on even like building there. And they had prepared a whole press release ready for any journalists who were asking the questions about it. So it shows that they did know about it. And also along the lines of the outer islands, that they had said that no one will be able to go onto the outer islands post the deal, which is really interesting because the Chagossians had been promised that they'll be resettled by Mauritius to the outer islands. So they've actually been lied to by Mauritius in this whole thing again. So they would be betrayed all over again. And what else is that they also feared any sort of public scrutiny whatsoever. So, yeah, huge Chagos news there.
All right, well, listen, we'll come back to this in just a moment. But next, a shocking comment from one minister revealed in the release that Labour's ministers are desperate for as many taxes as possible. That is next. This is The Late Show Live on GB News.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you. Bulletins on GB News,
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches.
From football to tennis in the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again.
To start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, this Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live with me, Nana Akweer. Let's get more on those Mandelson files. Now, in a private discussion with Mandelson about welfare, the Work and Pensions Secretary, Pat McFadden, told him, every meeting I have is who can we tax in order to pay benefits to others? They're asking the wrong questions. Wow. Joining me in London, my panel, GB News contributor and comedian Leo Kearse, political commentator Matthew Stadlen, and former government advisor Robert Midgley. Right, Leo Kearse, they are clearly Well, just trying to tax us to death to pay for welfare for people to stay at home.
Yeah, it's not really news, is it? It's not news. We know this is happening. I think there's more money now spent on benefits than is raised from income tax, which is a terrifying state of affairs when people are being rewarded to do nothing instead of being rewarded to work. But yeah, this shows that the Labour Party, they're just about redistributing other people's money to whoever will vote for them. They just want to buy votes. They see us as tax cows. Don't even see us as people. The way we're referred to in these leaks, you wouldn't even think we're people. We're just some sort of pleb in a Matrix-style pod that they can come along and squeeze the others from when they need to dish out some handouts to some group that's going to vote for them. It's pretty disgusting. So I think that's damaging for the government. More damaging to Starmer, I think, is just the fact that he completely lost authority immediately. Yeah. His backbenchers just immediately started questioning his ability to rule, and quite rightly, as it's turned out.
Matthew Stadlin, I mean, this is sort of your side of the fence, the Labour Party.
I think what it shows, at least in part, is that Pat McFadden, the Work and Pensions Secretary, does actually want to drive through welfare reforms, and there is a gap between him and some in his party. So you might be reassured at least that he genuinely wants to make welfare reform happen.
McFadden can see that we are spending more on welfare than we're bringing in on tax, so he wouldn't be doing a very good job. Yeah. So that would be the reason. But come on, this is your side of the fence.
Well, I was just in the middle of answering. Okay, so what I'm saying is that the welfare secretary actually wants to drive through welfare reform, and that was stymied by backbenchers. I think a lot of people will be relieved that the welfare secretary feels the way he does. I also suspect he was exaggerating. Don't forget, these were candid messages, and it doesn't mean he was actually being literal. That in every meeting he's ever been to, Labour MPs are trying to tax people more in order to pay for welfare. I hope it was an exaggeration, but we do know. we do know that the welfare reforms were. We know that the welfare reforms were at least partly derailed, and it is a massive question, it seems, looming over our country. How do you reform welfare without really hammering people who just desperately need it? And that is the difficult question, whether it's faced by this government or the next government, whoever that might be.
Do you think that's a difficult question?
I think it is really difficult.
I know where I would start. I would start by removing welfare for anxiety. I'm sorry, I would prescribe going to work so you're not sitting in your house ruminating with more anxiety. Robert Midgley.
Look, I know Pat, and I've actually worked with him before, and he's actually quite a sound guy. So I can imagine the comments were actually probably a bit humorous, but I mean, it doesn't detract from the fact that, yes, Labour are on a mission to tax us to absolute death. From womb to tomb, you are taxed hundreds of times. From the moment you wake up, from the moment you go to bed, you are taxed to absolute death, and it absolutely needs to stop. I don't know how small businesses thrive, how big businesses thrive at the moment, and it all trickles down to people who you can employ. I'm a small business advisor myself, so I know that if I'm taxed so much, it means I can't employ someone. So it has a huge effect on the whole economy. And if you're unemployed, then you go on to welfare. And if a welfare bill is more than the income bill, then, what's happening? You can't pay for anything in the country. You can't, pay for, roads to be fixed, for trains to run on time. And suddenly you're on a huge decline slope.
We had the highest growth in the G7 in the first part of the year, didn't we? And also, Labour made a political choice, which is to fund the NHS. I don't know which Prime Minister you were advising, but the Tories were, if you're worried about high rates of taxation, they're pretty high under the Tories as well.
Boris, I worked for Boris, and I told him we're being taxed too much. I said when COVID lockdown happened, I turned to him and said, the lockdown would be okay if we weren't taxed so much, but the fact is, you've gone and created a national holiday for everyone where people are just having bikes outside and no one's going to be going to work, and suddenly the state will have to pay for all of this. So, I'm a bit two ways about that.
Yeah. Final word to you, 20 seconds.
I don't like paying tax.
I do.
I can see that.
I do. Sorry. I actually, honestly...
You like paying tax?
When I sign off...
Look what you're paying for.
Yeah, when I sign off my tax form, I feel a bit of pride that I've been able to work, contribute to the upkeep of this country, and mean, for example, that my father-in-law
Sounds like
is going to mean, for example, my father-in-law is going to spend less time on a waiting list than he did.
I want him to spend more time.
Well, I don't mind paying tax if I know the money's been spent properly, but frankly, it isn't, is it? All right, well, stay with us. We've got so much more to come. This is The Late Show Live with me, Nana Akwe. Up next, let's get an update with your weather.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Rain this morning clears east, although lingers across eastern Scotland. Frequent showers for many following the rain, along with hail and thunder in places. Here's the main band of rain. During the next few hours, it clears its way into the North Sea, but a branch of the rain just lingers across east and northeast Scotland, and some more persistent rain for the south of Scotland. Elsewhere, frequent and heavy showers, gusty winds, hail and thunder mixed in. In between the showers, there will be some brighter spells and temperatures of 18 to 21 Celsius in the south, 15 to 17 further north. So a touch above average for the time of year, but not feeling very pleasant at all, where we're stuck under the rain clouds. And this area of rain just persists across the northeast of Scotland throughout the day, heavy at times. Towards the south and west of Scotland, it's drier, still a few showers, and Northern Ireland will see plenty of downpours as the day comes to an end. England and Wales, in between showers, some brighter or clearer interludes, but plenty of cloud and also gusty winds, making it feel on the cool side. Now, we go into Tuesday night with those showers continuing in many places. They will ease towards the southwest for a time, but only ahead of the next weather system that's approaching by dawn, bringing another spell of persistent and heavy rain. Temperatures overnight not dropping too far, 12 to 14 in the south, 10 or 11 further north, more comfortable than many of the nights were last week for sleeping. But it's a wet start to the day across Northern Ireland, Wales and the southwest. The persistent rain here moves into central and eventually eastern parts of the UK by the afternoon. It's going to linger longest across Northern Ireland, but for Wales and the southwest, frequent heavy showers follow, and it's going to feel a bit cooler with gusty winds continuing.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis, in the car,
in the kitchen,
GB News Breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again to start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, we're live from London. This is GB News with the stories shaping Britain and America. Tonight.
They said that if I just showed up in Britain, it would disturb the public order. It would be a serious risk to the public order, like mayhem would break out the minute I stepped into London.
The Home Secretary has banned 2 more political content creators from entering the UK on the grounds that their presence wasn't conducive to public good. Plus,
we've had the worst situation possible, but we're determined to make a difference for other children.
the Mayor of London is warning that the growing influence of the manosphere risks a lost generation of young men and will be setting out reforms to stop the algorithms feeding hate to children's feeds. Also,
Labour are being wiped out by reform in many of their most traditional areas.
A major survey has found that support for Reform UK is more than a protest vote, and
there are too many people and not enough jobs, and to stand out of the crowd, to stand out of the masses, you need to get yourself some credentials.
Oh, I totally agree. So you want to stand out? Don't go to college.
With 700,000 graduates now out of work and claiming benefits, is university a con? I'm Nana Akweer. This is The Late Show Live. Welcome to The Late Show Live. Joining me this evening in London is my panel, GB News contributor and comedian Leo Kearse, political commentator Matthew Stadlen, and former advisor in Number 10 Downing Street, Robert Midgley. And in Washington, D.C., US political analyst Eric Ham, and also US the reporter for the Daily Mail, Victoria Churchill. Thank you for joining us tonight. So tonight, serious questions are being asked about free speech in Britain after the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, blocked 2 high-profile American political commentators from entering the UK. Cenk Uygur, the host of the left-wing online show The Young Turks, and political streamer Hassan Piker were due to speak at an event in London this week. But the Home Office has revoked their entry permits, saying that their presence may not be conducive to the public good. Both men have faced controversy over their comments on Israel and the Middle East. Uygur has been accused of promoting anti-Semitic tropes, whilst Piker has been criticised for his pro-Hamas remarks and for saying America deserved 9/11. Here they are, reacting to the news just moments ago.
So no matter what you say, they call you an anti-Semite, and now they have taken my freedom away. So I literally have my freedom of movement restricted. And guys, so I can't go to the United Kingdom, and I don't know if that ban is gonna last a lifetime. Do you know how many people have gotten off that list? 1, Snoop Dogg. And Snoop got off the list because it was a minor marijuana infraction, okay? And it took him like 4 years to get off the list. Yeah. So the rest of us are considered persona non grata, like so dangerous. They said that if I just showed up in Britain, it would disturb the public order. It would be a serious risk to the public order, like mayhem would break out the minute I stepped into London. Well, I was in London and Oxford last year. How come mayhem didn't break out? No, it's preposterous and it's indefensible.
So I don't think there's any hope left for the Labour Party, and that is entirely in the hands of the Jeremy Corbyn assassin himself, Keir Starmer. They deliberately destroyed the actual populist wing of their party, and they did it at the behest of Israel as well. Labour Friends of Israel was a huge part of the fake anti-Semitism smears and accusations that Jeremy Corbyn was inundated with, and Keir Starmer famously said, if you don't like what I'm doing, you can leave the party, and many people did.
So the Home Office says that it doesn't comment on individual cases, but we understand that it is reviewing the case and all individuals must meet certain requirements of immigration rules. Well, with me now is political commentator Lauren Southern. Lauren, thank you very much for joining me. I did hear you do an interview a couple of days ago on another radio station. I won't mention it, but I was very impressed and I was very engaged with what you were saying. So a lot of people might not know your sort of backstory. So tell us a bit about you and kind of what happened with you.
Sure. In 2015, pre-Trump, I was kind of at the height of the culture war political commentators on YouTube, particularly from a right-wing viewpoint. And in 2018, I did a stunt in Luton where I set up a pride parade with a few other creators, or a pride parade booth, rather. And it caused a little bit of a stir given the Islamic leanings in the area. After that, when I tried to re-enter the UK, not only was I denied entry, but I was detained under the Terrorism Act as a terrorist and held for 8 to 10 hours and questioned about all of my beliefs, recorded, denied rights to even remain silent. It was a very bizarre experience. So this idea of people being banned from the UK for thought crime is certainly not new, but I will say I didn't hear Hassan Piker making many comments about the bans of many, many activists before him under different governments. Ironically, mine being under a Tory government and his now being under a Labour government.
So, Lauren, what do you make, then, of these two left-wing content creators? Because usually, in my view, it tends to be slightly disproportionate to those on the right being banned. But these two left-wing content creators being blocked from entering the UK?
Well, I think there's just been a trend overall in the Home Office restricting viewpoints that are against the status quo or establishment. And, I've seen Hassan on X trying to make this a culture war talking point where this is mega fascism in action, even though it's a Labour government. I think this is absurd. I don't think it's a left or right issue. I think Cenk is a little more awake to the need to kind of unite on this personally. It's a free speech issue. In fact, I'll be honest, I'm trying to have my ban upturned after 8 years, simply because I need to testify in the UK in a court trial there against an actual criminal, not a thought criminal. And I'm having difficulty right now. I don't even know. I worry coming on this program right now might affect my ability to re-enter the UK. But this is not a left or right issue. This is a general free speech issue in the UK that they've been having for a long time. But as usual, we see the same cycle where people think if they just ignore the other commentators because they're on the other side of the, political spectrum, well, that's fine. I'll be fine. The crocodile won't eat me when it gets to me, right? I don't think Cenk or Hassan should be banned. I don't. I think they should have the right to criticize Israel, as anyone should have the right to criticize Islamic fundamentalism, right? I wouldn't do it in the same way I did when I was younger and had a little more, a bit more of a crazy side. I'm a little more mature now, but I do think there is a need for free speech but this is going to keep cycling so long as people celebrate when the other side gets banned because it's a win for you, as if that pendulum isn't going to swing back one day.
Well, do you think, then, that... What would you define as free speech, then? Do you think people can say whatever they want?
No, of course you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. There are restrictions to this, and there are aspects where I actually understand the UK saying, hey, Lauren, some of the activism you did might have caused a bit of chaos in the streets or even protests. But the idea of me being arrested under the Terrorism Act is very obviously absurd. It not being a warning, I might be banned for the rest of my life. And also just this ambiguous idea of not conducive to the public good. What does that mean? Any sort of fascistic government could use that to ban anyone. There needs to be more definition. There needs to be more understanding of what is speech that genuinely causes upheaval. As Cenk was saying, you know, I visited years ago to do Oxford and there was no protests, there was no chaos. What does the Home Office mean by this? If there's no definition, anyone is at risk. And thus, left or right, we need to unite on discussing how do we protect these freedoms that the liberal West have had for so long that have kept us sane and protected our freedoms.
Well, I guess you decide what kind of a society you want, don't you? Because we could say, yeah, you can say what you like, and you know, because freedom of speech means you can say what on, you know, what's on your mind, and people will have a go at you. But I actually don't mind these two being barred. I'm all right with it, actually. I mean, one of them, he made comments. One of them made comments that Hamas was 1,000 times better than Israel. I mean, and he would vote for Hamas over Israel every single time. I don't want him in my country. I'm really happy for him to not come in. Do you know what I mean? Another one said that they were happy about 9/11. Sorry, dude, but I don't like what you said. I'm not happy with you coming in here. I don't want somebody like that around me. I'm OK with this. When they're saying things that I think are abhorrent, and I guess what someone might call hate speech, there are laws against that. And I think when you're talking freedom of speech, I think that sort of ends when you start to encroach on other people's freedoms.
I understand that, I do, and I find myself not politically aligned with Hassan or Cenk whatsoever, but having been on the other end of multiple country bans due to not being conducive to the public good, Australia as well, New Zealand as well, and not being given any real definition, I think we run a real risk of, if we celebrate Hassan and Cenk being banned, even though Hassan has said abhorrent things, I certainly don't think, you know, America deserved 9/11, right? That's not a great thing to say, but where is the line? Can you have the opinion that, you know, you don't like Israel or you don't like Palestine without being banned from a country? Can you say things that are a little absurd that aren't necessarily encroaching in the realm of advocating violence against others? Where do we draw that line? Because it will eventually be weaponized against us. Anyone from the right or the left.
Well, or the hate speech will be weaponised against us. If you see what I mean? Like, if you're going to say things about America and say they deserve 9/11, don't expect America to let you in. Do you know what I mean? America are absolutely within their rights to think, well, we don't want somebody who's going to betray this country or who thinks that's a good thing. And I just sometimes feel that people are... I've had people say some terrible things about me in terms of race and this and that, and they go, oh, well, it's freedom of speech. They can say what I like. And I think, well, I think words have consequences. They absolutely do. And if that country decides that the consequences are for those words that they don't want you in that country, then you've got to suck it up.
Do you think that there has to be a more defined definition of what this speech is, though? Because when you go into that realm of, well, you know, I dislike what Hassan said, I dislike what these leaders said, how do we know who it's going to be used against next, you know?
Well, I think where we draw, I mean, and I know what you're saying, where do we draw the line? And who's drawing the line? Because you can end up in a situation where you've got some weird sort of left-wing or right-wing government that we could end up in what we've seen, where, you know, we don't like what you're saying, so we're going to cancel you, that kind of thing. I get it. But I think on some of these things, it's blatantly obvious that these people shouldn't come into this country. And at that point, I think it's easy. It does get a bit more murky, but then I think when you get into the point where it appears that you're heading towards breaking a law or stepping into what is clearly hate speech, then I get it that who draws the line. But saying that, you know, you'd prefer Hamas 1,000 times more than Israel, I just think, well, everyone would admit they're a terrorist organisation or a terrorist governmental group or whatever. So, you know, the line for me is quite simple.
Would you say that you would support the ban that I received in 2018 for setting up the Pride booth in Luton?
You know, again, to me, that feels a bit more wishy-washy to me. That does feel a bit wishy-washy. If I'm, you know, I'm thinking that doesn't seem so bad. But again, I guess, you know, somebody drew the line and felt that you'd crossed the line. And whoever drew the line, again, it comes to who's drawing the line and have they got a, you know, are they thinking straight? Are they captured in one way or another? And this is where there is a danger. But when it is quite clear, I'm not so sure that you should have been banned, but then I don't know all of the detail. Talk to me a bit about the Manosphere stuff, though, because I know now you sort of deeply regret being part of that.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely was a part of kind of the trad life commentary back in the day. You need to get married, you need to have kids young, you need to, as a woman, you shouldn't be working, you should be having babies. And growing up and actually living life and having relationships, I ended up getting married and separated and becoming a single mother, as well as experiencing some of the manosphere figures in person, meeting them and seeing how they lived their lives. And it's a lot more complicated than the internet commentary. Real life does not map on to radical ideologies that we often see on the internet. And as I was mentioning, I'm trying to get my ban uplifted at the moment so that I can testify in the Andrew Tate court case in the UK, which has been pushed back due to multiple investigations being started again. But it's not something people want to talk about because they really like these gender war boxes where all men are evil or all women are evil, because it means we don't have to look inward and fix ourselves. The internet is kind of this soothing drug-like device that makes us ignore our own problems. And the manosphere is very much just as bad as the radical feminism I critiqued in 2015, 2016 when I started on the scene.
So what do you think it would take for you to get your bans lifted? Because you seem to have sort of mellowed a bit more. I guess the words are you've grown up, because you know how it is, especially being a single mum. That does teach you a few hard truths. I know that. I was a single mum for many years, and tell you what, I really enjoyed it. I actually really enjoyed being single and no man telling me what to do and doing my own stuff and get out of my house. It was my house, my money, my way. I enjoyed it thoroughly, although I have met somebody now who has accepted that I'm a very bossy woman, and that's fine. But what do you think it's going to take for you to be accepted, as it were, by those countries that have banned you?
Well, I've obviously put in my applications and I've mentioned I'm just trying to enter so I can testify in this case. I have no plans to do any activism, but the internet does a strange thing where it freezes people in time. I meet people on the street and they only remember the version of me when I was 19 or 20 years old. I don't get to grow up past that, since that's the first Google search that appears. And I think as a society, we are going to have to accept the fact that people can grow. We're going to have to go beyond cancel culture, both on a governmental level and a social level, in order to integrate all of these young people who are now on social media saying insane things, joining insane political cults, whether they be extremist left or extremist right. If we don't accept the process of growth, both on a political and social level, we're really trapping our society in a horrific cycle. And I just think I'm the canary in the coal mine, but I certainly will not be the first or last to be defined by the silliest decisions I made at 19 years old.
Yeah, it does seem a little bit unfair, I'll be honest with you. I'll give you that, Lauren. But really good to talk to you. Thank you so much for your thoughts. That's political commentator Lauren Southern. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, well, let's speak to my panel in London, see what they make of that. GB News contributor and comedian Leo Kearse, political commentator Matthew Stadlin, and former government advisor Robert Midgley. I'm going to come straight to you, Leo Kearse, because I know you're a big free speech advocate.
I am.
What do you make initially of what Lauren is saying and how she's been treated?
Yeah, I mean, I think how she was treated was ridiculous. She's obviously not a threat, considering the amount of people we allow to just rock up to the country and welcome. We wave them in and give them a free premier in and a room overlooking a primary school. Considering, the dangers that we've seen, like the Afghan man who dragged a 12-year-old girl from swings in a playground and raped her. I mean, this is horrific. You think at a basic level, on a sort of public health level, we'd stop the boats. Considering who Starmer still lets in, to stop Lauren or to stop Cenk Uygur or Hassan Piker. I mean, these are guys that I don't agree with at all.
Well, I'm OK for them to be stopped. I don't want them here.
I don't agree with them, but I mean, I think if you want to stop anti-Semitism in Britain, I think a lot of the guys coming across in the boats will have much more anti-Semitic views that will be expressed much more violently than Cenk Uygur and Hassan Piker. Hassan Piker, the worst I've seen him do is electrocute his dog. I don't think he's ever.
Well, that's not very nice.
It's not very nice, but I mean, he doesn't have the upper body strength to harm a human.
No.
But these are people that I think if the left also had principles and stood up for freedom of speech. We saw people being barred from the Tommy Robinson rally, which was, I attended, it was a nice atmosphere. I was really surprised. I was expecting, some sort of thuggery or whatever. I didn't see any of it. But all these speakers, MEPs, politicians, real respected pillars of the establishment in some places were barred, and we didn't see people from the left speaking out to stand up for Britain's principles of freedom of speech. So, then when people from the left get cancelled, you've created that weapon.
Do you want Islamist hate preachers coming into the country?
I think Islamist hate preach is something different. That's when it steps over the line into if you're
some hate good, some hate bad. Sort of.
Well, what's the hate? What's the hate? What's Cheng Uyghur gonna say? I mean, he's got some objectionable ideas, but
without mentioning these two particular characters,
Well,
I haven't.
no,
hang on. I know. Well, you
them.
can, of course. I haven't trawled through their social media history. What I would say is that Hamas is a terrorist organisation, designated terrorist organisation in this country. So whether
but
you're...
there's a Hamas commander who's got a council house, who's given a council house in Barnet. There's no sort of parity.
Do you think
in the
we should
rules.
have people, and again, I'm not referring to these two individuals, do you think we should have people on the left who think that Hamas are the bee's knees being allowed into this country?
The country is full of people who think Hamas is the bee's knees. The entire Green Party thinks Hamas is the bee's knees.
Do you want them coming in? Do you want more of them coming in? Because we've got our own rapists, but you don't want foreign rapists coming in, would be your line. Do you want more Hamas supporters coming into the country?
I think there's a difference between actively perpetrating violence on someone or calling for violence on someone and supporting an organisation. But we're not even talking about...
We are. This is precisely what we're talking about. Leo, the law of this land is you're not allowed to express support for Hamas. Because that's a criminal offence. We know that, right? Listen, you are aware, of course, that this is... hang on, this isn't just a British thing. Look at America. This is a story from December, and I'm now going to quote... It's only 2 or 3 lines. Tourists from dozens of countries, including the UK, could be asked to provide a 5-year social media history as a condition of entry to the United States under a new proposal unveiled by American officials. So let's not pretend that we've got some sort of freedom of speech issue here. I'm saying, no, this is partly an American show which has been broadcast to America. What I'm saying very clearly is that Trump doesn't want people coming into his country that he thinks are not conducive to the public good. Our Home Secretary reserves the right to keep people out who she thinks are not conducive. Now, this is a difficult area. It's a very difficult area, but let's not pretend it's unique to our country.
Do you think Dominic Sarczynski, who's a member of the European Parliament, is going to be a danger to the country? Do you think these people, who previously, as Cheng Uyghur said, he was here a year ago and riots didn't start, things didn't spontaneously burst into flames. You think it's right that people should be banned?
My own position, as you can see, as somebody who's come on GB News 425 times, is I will debate anyone that I'm asked to debate. That includes you, Leo, who thinks that you would like my father-in-law to be on a longer waiting list. I will talk to anyone, right?
I mean, we can...
But I do also think that there should be a power which is reserved by our Home Secretary, a democratically elected official and appointed in government, to say, we don't think you are conducive to public good in this country, we're keeping you out.
Well, I think there's a difference between freedom of speech and terrorism, to be quite honest. I think, we had the case of Abu Hamza all those years ago where he was on a box preaching hatred, inciting terrorism, and quite rightly he should have been deported and we couldn't get rid of him. But there's a difference between political commentary and terrorism. Like, you can't just come here and preach terrorism. I fundamentally agree that terrorism should be deported, they shouldn't be allowed in. But commentators, yes, there's a freedom of speech there that they should be able to say, no matter, I might not agree with anti-Semitism or whatever, but, we do have freedom of speech. And we
don't have freedom to anti-Semitism in this country, do we? Well, we don't, do we?
I think people should...
You can't come to this country if you're going to be spouting anti-Semitism.
I'm not an anti-Semite, but everyone has a right to be criticised. Everyone does.
Well, anti-Semitism is a form of racism, so that's not acceptable, is it? So we don't want somebody...
We don't have the right to criticise Nana for being black or for Jews for being Jewish or Muslims for being Muslims.
But
you have other reasons.
Yeah, there's plenty of reasons why you can criticise me. You could go, I'd probably do one of those. But look, he said 1,000... One of them said, this Piker said that Hamas was 1,000 times better. Now, he's a speaker than Israel.
That's hyperbole.
That's not... Yeah, you might call it hyperbole. But, again, he's a speaker. He's going to be talking about this. To me, that's preaching hate. Hamas are a terrorist organisation or a terrorist state or government, because we know there are elements to Hamas. Would you think he's all right to come to the country?
I don't believe that he should be in the country. I don't think that he should be here. He shouldn't be saying those sorts of things. But, you know, again, it's a freedom of speech issue. I do...
well, no, you seem very... Sorry, I'm just going to pin you down. You seem very confused about this. We have the law of the land in this country, which means you are not allowed to incite racial or religious hatred.
Racial or religious hatred. This is nonsense. If he said, oh, I could eat a horse, would you be like, oh, we must phone the RSPCA. This man is going to eat a horse.
You're allowed to eat horses. There's horse meat. Remember, one of the supermarkets was selling it.
You're not if you don't have a license to slaughter the horse. You can't go up to a horse and kill a horse and eat the entire horse.
What I'm saying,
Matthew is right. He would be breaching the rules in this country around animal husbandry. And such a person who says, "Oh, I could eat a horse," then
don't be ridiculous,
people
Leo.
say worse things. I was in the pub
completely ridiculous.
Silly, Leo.
I was in the pub the other night.
You can eat a horse.
I was in the pub the other night and I heard somebody say, "Oh, I'm starving. I could murder an Indian." Oh, he's gonna get on a flight to the subcontinent.
Oh, well, he was talking about an Indian meal.
Not talking about
an Indian meal.
Yeah, exactly. So when somebody says something hyperbolic,
it depends on the context, doesn't it? If you say
an Indian meal, not an Indian person.
Yeah, and he wasn't.
This is ridiculous.
This is ridiculous.
Let's talk to our panel in the US. I want some sanity. Let's speak to US political analyst Eric Ham and also US political reporter for the Daily Mail, Victoria Churchill. Victoria, we're going off track here. Seriously, I'm all right with these two who have been banned from this country, and I don't want people in here spreading hatred towards any race, religion, or promoting terror. Now, I don't think I've got... I'm happy with freedom of speech, but I draw the line there. Victoria, what do you think?
Well, I do think that I want to commend Starmer's government, actually, because they do seem to be intellectually consistent on banning people based on their views. Now, that's something that I personally find abhorrent because I am somebody that believes in freedom of speech. And, you know, I think most people in the U.S., particularly those that are in the political media and commentary space, would go out and say, you know, even if I disagree with what you have to say, I will fight to the death for your right to say it. And it doesn't seem like on the other side of the pond, lots of people have that sentiment, particularly the current Labour government.
Yeah, OK, so what about this comment then? Hamas was 1,000 times better than Israel, and he would vote for Hamas over Israel every single time. Also comments that the Americans deserved 9/11. Are you saying that you don't mind somebody saying that? You would be happy for them to come into your country because he's allowed to say it?
Well, he is in my country and he is saying it, right? And so, you know, again, I disagree vehemently with what he says. No, I disagree vehemently with what he says, but, you know, again, in the U.S., we like to at least live under the aura that we have a free exchange of ideas. And so to that, I think that, you know, the people that come out and say these disgusting and abhorrent things, there are people that will give the equal or opposite viewpoint. And I think that is healthy for our society because, you know, I think typically when people have kind of fringe views that are not met with a loyal opposition, that it is actually worse for our society because people breed these ideologies in echo chambers where they don't get, you know, they don't get challenged. And, you know, that's one of the reasons why I love coming on this show, right?
Why is the American president considering, at least he was in December, I don't know what the result of that is so far, but considering making sure that our social media accounts are being trawled through 5 years back, I think, in order to make sure that people coming to America were effectively conducive to the public good, to keep Americans safe?
Well, I actually reported on a story of a British national. He was described at one point as a journalist, I think kind of a political agitator is more of a better descriptor for him, but I believe it was Hamdi. His first name escapes me now, but I think it was last year. He was somebody that was brought in by Muslim advocacy groups into the U.S. to be a speaker at some of their events, and the Trump administration actually kicked him out. You know, I think that is actually an example of what you're talking about there, is that we have, you know, people that believe in free speech, but we also have people that cross the line at national security. And, you know, that is a debate kind of as old as time when you talk about when are people willing to trade their freedoms for security. And also you ask, you know, to what extent does the First Amendment and other constitutional rights, do they apply to U.S. citizens, permanent residents versus visitors? And that's all part of a healthy and vibrant debate that we're having in this country, have been having for months, and I'm sure we'll continue to have for years.
I'm just making the point that America, the American state, cares very much about the sorts of people it allows into America. And so I think it's a bit rich for Americans to be criticising Britain for looking out for our own interests.
Let's chuck that one to Eric. Eric Ham.
Well, I think what we're seeing here is certainly in the United States, this type of speech is certainly protected. But that does not mean that it doesn't have not only political ramifications, but also international ramifications. And while there is a blanket of protection that both of these men hold here in the United States, that does not necessarily mean that that protection actually holds when they travel abroad. And I think what we're seeing here is just like in the United States, where we have a government that is making clear that they are picking and choosing what they deem not only to be certainly acceptable, but also in the national security interest. I think that's what we're seeing play out across the pond as well. And this is something that these two men and others are certainly going to have to contend with, which is the accountability of the things that they say. And while there is a level of accountability that they may hold here, perhaps it's more economic, political, what we're seeing here is that accountability is now being met, as it is now keeping them from being able to travel abroad. And I think they need to contend with their own comments and what it might mean abroad as well.
Rightly so. Robert Midgley, you anything to add to that?
No, I completely agree with the panelists in America, to be honest. I think, it's a very authoritarian issue that we have here. And, like I said, there's a difference between freedom of speech and terrorism. And where is that line? I think it's the line where, you're inciting violence and murder. That's where the line is. Otherwise, people have their views and... like she said, you need that healthy mix of left and right. You need those opinions, and freedom of speech should always be protected, no matter how much we disagree with them. I disagree with leftists, and they disagree with rightists, and we need that healthy mix.
Well, I think we can have the healthy mix, but when someone's talking about supporting a terror group who are prescribed as a terror group across the world, I'm quite happy to not allow those people to come in or chuck them out if they are here. All right, listen, stay with us because it's still ahead on The Late Show Live.
There are too many people and not enough jobs, and to stand out of the crowd, to stand out of the masses, you need to get yourself some credentials.
Oh, I totally agree. So you want to stand out? Don't go to college.
Well, with 700,000 graduates now out of work and claiming benefits, is university a con? First, let's get an update with your weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Rain this morning clears east, although lingers across eastern Scotland. Frequent showers for many following the rain, along with hail and thunder in places. Here's the main band of rain. During the next few hours, it clears its way into the North Sea, but a branch of the rain just lingers across east and northeast Scotland, and some more persistent rain for the south of Scotland. Elsewhere, frequent and heavy showers, gusty winds, hail and thunder mixed in. In between the showers, there will be some brighter spells and temperatures of 18 to 21 Celsius in the south, 15 to 17 further north. So a touch above average for the time of year, but not feeling very pleasant at all, where we're stuck under the rain clouds. And this area of rain just persists across the northeast of Scotland throughout the day, heavy at times. Towards the south and west of Scotland, it's drier, still a few showers, and Northern Ireland will see plenty of downpours as the day comes to an end. England and Wales, in between showers, some brighter or clearer interludes, but plenty of cloud and also gusty winds, making it feel on the cool side. Now we go into Tuesday night with those showers continuing in many places. They will ease towards the southwest for a time, but only ahead of the next weather system that's approaching by dawn, bringing another spell of persistent and heavy rain. Temperatures overnight not dropping too far, 12 to 14 in the south, 10 or 11 further north, more comfortable than many of the nights were last week for sleeping. But it's a wet start to the day across Northern Ireland, Wales and the southwest. The persistent rain here moves into central and eventually eastern parts of the UK by the afternoon. It's going to linger longest across Northern Ireland, but for Wales and the southwest, frequent heavy showers follow, and it's going to feel a bit cooler with gusty winds continuing.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good evening, welcome to The Late Show Live, or should I say good morning. I'm Nana Okwere, and I'm asking, has Britain started to lose faith in the value of a university degree? Now, the latest British Social Attitudes Survey has found that confidence in higher education has fallen sharply, with a record 34% of people now saying that university isn't worth the time or money, more than double the figure from 20 years ago. The research also found that fewer people believe graduates are better off in the long run, as concerns grow over student debt, high interest rates and a tougher job market. With around 700,000 graduates now out of work and claiming benefits, is it just too many young people pushing towards degrees instead of maybe doing some vocational training? And what with Charlie Kirk, was he right about what he said?
11 million job openings for trades.
Yeah, you're using your muscles to get your daily wage,
well,
right?
it's not just muscles, though. Like, for advanced engineering is not easy. That's not just picking up lumber and putting on one side of the warehouse. That's very specific. And by the way, you can learn to code in 8 weeks and earn 100 grand a year.
You can.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you don't need to go to University of Washington.
The thing is though that you are not going to get hired over somebody that has graduated from UW
You'd be
with
surprised.
a computer science degree.
You've been sold a lie. You've been surprised. You'd be really surprised. Employers less and less likely actually want to hire kids from college because they work the least, they're the most entitled, and they're quickest to run to HR about problems and mispronouncing people.
Yeah, I think he's right about that last bit as well. If you've got somebody who's a real sort of working class, kind of really working, he doesn't want to do the kind of officey type job and doesn't go to university, I think a lot of the university students are a bit entitled. I think that's one of the reasons why some of them haven't got jobs, because they don't want to do a job that doesn't align with the degree that they've acquired. Well, joining me in London, my panel, Leo, Matthew and Rob. Leo, because you're looking at me, you've got something to say.
Yeah, no, I do. I think, Tony Blair has a lot to answer for, because he had this idea that 50% of the population could go to university. I don't know how he plucked that number. I don't know what it's based on, other than the fact that it's a nice round number. But back in the day when 5% of the population would go to university, you'd be like, yeah, the university graduates, they're so smart. They're so smart. But you can't turn thick people into smart people by putting them in a former polytechnic. This is what I found when I went to university. I came out just the same. But I think there's this idea that the process of going to university makes people smart. All it does is it makes people in debt, entitled, have an inflated sense of their self-worth. So I think the trades, I can see in my amongst my own friendship group, people who learnt a trade, like a proper trade. My dad was a gunsmith. I was always saying to him, like, teach me. When I was a little kid, I was like, teach me about gunsmith and teach me how to make guns and stuff. And he was always, no, you want to get a social arts degree from a middling liberal college, and that'll set you up for life. And man, if he'd have taught me about gunsmithing,
you'd be doing really well now.
Of guns, wouldn't I?
I don't know whether that would have been a good thing or a bad thing, to be honest.
Could be very useful now.
So listen, you're right to mention the Tony Blair thing. There was this drive under Blair to get 50-50, get 50% of people into university. I remember debating it with family at the time, and there were some obvious advantages. Leo's clearly talking nonsense when he says the only thing you get out of university is entitlement and debt.
You get some hangovers.
You get a lot. You got a lot else, including a hinterland, which might sound a bit of a pompous word, but it means that you develop interests that can stay with you for the rest of your life. There are all sorts of ways in which, and it also trains your brain. However, I am all for proper apprentices, and I've said for a long time, and I'm always mocked when I said it, I don't think in our country we have a culture where we properly respect many of the non-graduate type jobs that people do.
Blue collar.
Now, plumbers get a good wage, they earn more than I do, but I'm not sure that they get this level of respect for the immense skill that involves to do what they do.
I get more respect than you.
I'm not sure. I think when it comes to GB News viewers, you're probably right.
I think that's based on a sort of elitist attitude that you've acquired from university, believing that. Because I
don't believe it. I've just said I don't believe it. I'm talking about there being a culture of this.
You talked about plumbers getting less respect.
Yeah.
And that you do believe in, right? Now, that's the point I'm making. I think you're wrong. I think plumbers have the utmost respect. I mean, somebody has trashed my apartment that I rent out. I'm so thankful that I have such a good plumber, and he's also a carpenter, and he's also a tiler. I have so much respect for that person who is doing up the property back to its original. I couldn't do that.
Well, we're on the same page as that. We're on the same page, but I think a lot of people don't have that respect.
Yeah, but the mindset that you've just put forward is exactly the mindset that people end up going to university and ending up with an elitist
I think to an extent that's true. Just very briefly, before we came on now, I was talking, not because I was going to be talking about this, to a friend who was at university with me, clever bloke, and he was saying one of his main concerns now is, in inverted commas, middle-class jobs and the potential death of middle-class jobs in the coming years because of AI. And we just don't, I really think we don't talk about AI and the coming implications of AI remotely enough. I've got 2 very young children, as has he, and there are no guarantees whatsoever that in 20, 30 years' time, there are going to be the sorts of jobs that we might all have hoped or expected to get when we were little and growing up. This is the massive elephant in the room.
Well, you know what? In 20 or 30 years, there are no guarantees for anything. Robert?
No, I totally agree with Matthew there. I mean, AI is such a huge thing that graduates really need to sort of look around now and say, what's the university actually going to get me? Actually, I could probably do a lot better by just developing an app or something, bag off a degree and just start your own business, which is going to take you way further than a full-time job will ever do. But also, another point that we haven't really touched on is that universities are more like businesses now. They want to milk you for as much cash as possible. That's why, the UK doesn't really subsidise the loans for British people anymore and has inflated it to the foreign student level. I go around universities quite often, and what I find is most classes are just full of foreign students now because they're worth a lot more in cash. They're not bothered about that degree. They want to stay. They want to get that visa, postgraduate visa, to stay on longer. So the teacher doesn't really have to put in much effort. They don't need to put in much effort. They can just sail through this worthless degree and get that visa at the end. And then the UK gets however much it is, 30 grand out of them in that process.
So it's just a visa factor.
It is.
Absolutely.
That's pretty much, a lot of them overstay, then you can't get rid of them. That's one of the big problems with the mass legal migration, because they came in legally, but then they won't go back, and then they can bring family members and all of that sort of thing, and then you end up in the situation where many of them are on benefits whilst being here legally, and the taxpayer is footing the bill. Right, let's talk to my panel in the US. We've got political analyst Eric Ham and US political reporter for the Daily Mail, Victoria Churchill. Eric, do you have a similar problem in the States?
Well, we are actually seeing a number of growing colleges and universities that are seeing their debt levels begin to rise astronomically as enrollment continues to fall. And that enrollment is falling actually as a result of a number of issues. One, the tightening of visa policies that we're seeing from the Trump administration, and more international students simply not traveling to the United States to attend college and university. But also there's a massive demographic shift. You simply just don't have young people or college-age people attending college at the rate that they were back in the 80s or even the 90s. And so what you're seeing right now is universities that over the last 20 years began to take on more debt, actually expand their universities as if those college-age students were always going to be there. And now we're seeing a massive fall off. And as a result, even now you're beginning to see some colleges and universities actually shut down. In fact, in the state of Oregon, the lawmakers are actually grappling with how to actually save some universities. Now, of course, this is not going to hamper some of the more financially solvent universities, the Ivy League schools, the Harvards, the Yales, schools like that, and other big-name universities, the UC, the University of California system, the University of Michigan system, universities like that, which have like massive endowments, $50 billion, $20 billion. Those schools are going to be fine. But many of those mid-level, smaller schools, you're seeing them now really struggle with the massive shifts that are taking place, and universities simply don't know how to actually grapple with this.
Victoria.
Well, I think Eric is correct in the situation that we're in, but I think he might be a little bit incorrect on the cause. I think what we're really seeing is that, once again, particularly in the post-COVID era, students are realizing that their degrees are not worth what they pay for them. You know, even though a lot of companies, for example, are pulling back on degree requirements, and then also even in governments, for example, lots of state governments are pulling back on degree requirements for their jobs, which are, you know, fairly well paid jobs and fairly stable jobs, if you will. People are realizing that they can get good paying jobs without putting themselves in, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars sometimes of debt. And, you know, the other interesting thing that I've seen is a trend not only in the trades but in entrepreneurship. There's a study that I saw the other day that said, you know, if you had $100,000 to put towards an education, whether you should put that towards an education or whether you should put that into starting a business or even buying a home. And, you know, for a lot of people, they chose opportunities that were not necessarily their education, you know, particularly in things like entrepreneurship. Yes, of course, you can go get a business degree and you can learn the things that are taught to you in lectures or through papers, but really until you get into the competitive marketplace and figure out if your ideas are actually something that you can sell to people, that's when you figure out whether you're actually good at business or not if you got straight A's in school.
You see, I think, you know, you've touched on a big problem there. That when I was a lot younger, the student loan system was kind of not that much. I think I got a £3,000. The total I borrowed was £3,000. There was a grant system. I didn't qualify for the grant because my parents earned too much money. They didn't, you know, they weren't really rich, but I just didn't get a grant. There were those who did. And then it was actually during my time that the student loan system became a little bit more prolific, and then more and more people were taking bigger loans. The amount you could borrow got more and more and more. And now we're in a situation where you come out of university with £100,000 debt. I mean, who wants that? Who wants that? I don't think any, apart from buying property. And one time when I racked up loads of bills on loads of cards and stuff like that, when I had to, as a single mum, and paid it all off. But I never got myself into £100,000 worth of debt with no sign of paying it off. Do you know what I mean?
With the interest as well.
And the interest is going
up.
I
think what we're seeing also in the United States is that many of these universities are recognizing that the high cost of tuition is becoming increasingly problematic, and people are looking at other opportunities beyond going to college. And I think what we're seeing in terms of how they compete is now you're seeing more and more universities actually raise the level of what a family makes in terms of what they will now offer in terms of free tuition for students to attend a university. At the University of Chicago now, I think that number is any family that's making less than $250,000, they're now offering free tuition. It's the same at universities like the University of Michigan. Again, very elite universities in the United States. The Ivy Leagues are doing it as well. So I think they are now seeing that these rising costs that we have been seeing over the last 30 years, because the cost of tuition in many instances has outpaced not only inflation, but also it's outpaced actually what people are making in terms of their salaries. And so I think schools, as one of the guests said, you know, operating like a business, recognizes that this is now becoming too much of a problem for people to attend, and now we're seeing a course correction where now they're saying, you know, free college tuition for people who are making, you know, this threshold, and we're seeing that number continue to rise and rise and rise, actually to meet the need in terms of what we're seeing.
I think perhaps we're seeing that young people aren't stupid. They've gone, I don't think so.
But just, Nana, quickly to come back to my point
that's a very simple way of saying it, sure.
Just to come back to my point about AI, is there any sense from you guys in Washington that the American administration is doing the legwork to ensure that if AI continues to develop at the pace that it is, and that there are mass redundancies. And I don't want to be sensationalist about this or conspiracy theorist, but I think there is an acknowledgement that AI is really on a very, very steep trajectory. Is Trump's administration doing that legwork to ensure that there is a plan for that eventuality? And I hope that Starmer and the Labour government in this country are looking at it very seriously, because we get so caught up in so much. We debate so many different things on this channel and other channels. How much of our brain space is really being focused on what could be 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the line? Very, very close.
I think there was that question.
I think in the United States, what we're seeing here is there is a lot of AI data centers that are cropping up all across the country, and now, like so many other things, it's becoming a political flashpoint. And of course, there is an AI race that we're seeing from a number of different companies as well. How it's actually impacting universities in terms of people now moving away from college and universities and pursuing careers in AI. I think it's still unclear what that looks like and what that will mean for universities as they grapple with tuition, and people who are now just simply looking at college as though it's not the investment that it was even 20 years ago. But again, I think that's still a nascent endeavor right now that still has not really hit its mark.
All right, thank you for that. Thanks to Eric and also Victoria there in America. Stay with us. Because tonight, new research is challenging the claim that Reform UK is simply riding a wave of protest votes. A major survey has found that the party's supporters are driven less by short-term frustration and more by deeply held views on issues like immigration, welfare and gender identity. The British Society Attitudes Survey found that Reform UK voters are more dissatisfied than the wider public with both the state of the country and their own finances. 6 in 10 say that they were dissatisfied with the NHS, whilst more than a quarter say that they're struggling on their current household income. Well, lots to discuss. Let's have a chat about that one. Joining me in my panel, let's see what they think. I'll go with you, Robert Midgley.
Yeah, I mean, Reform have been leagues ahead in terms of sort of their communications to the rest of the country. They offer something that, say, Labour and Conservatives don't. Labour and Conservatives seem like these two old horses now, and Reform and the way they've modernised politics, you know, by having those big sort of American rallies, have really stormed ahead, and they've taken that Brexit vote with them. I mean, London and the rest of the UK are two very separate things. I remember working Downing Street, and, you know, what happens in London, what happens in Downing Street is completely the opposite of what the rest of the UK thinks. I'm from Yorkshire originally, so I'm quite a grounded person. But I go home and suddenly, you know, I'm surrounded by people who think like me, because everyone in my area up in Wakefield, they all vote Reform. And then you suddenly look at the council results, for example, and it's reflected across the whole of Yorkshire. And to me, it's quite nice to see. But I come back down to London, and it's so difficult because you're suddenly up against everything, you know, around you. And you can really see how it's taken shape, and I think Reform are going to do brilliantly in the next generation.
Up against what, though? What do you mean when you come to London you're up against everything?
Socially, things like DEI, suddenly taxation.
But isn't there DEI up in Yorkshire as well?
Not so much.
not so much.
I'm afraid
you need to go there.
So the police forces are trained differently, in your view, in Yorkshire to London.
I would say common sense is applied a bit more sensibly.
Exactly. I would agree with that. You need to go up north more.
I've been up north a lot, thanks very much.
Go up there more.
Yeah, well, I consider you all to be Southerners. But yeah, I think people are going to be caught unaware by the wave that's sweeping the country. We've had decades of this sort of stagnation under this sort of just creep of communism and state power into people's lives. And whenever there is a protest vote like Brexit was obviously mainly about immigration. People were concerned about mass immigration that's happened, since the 60s and 70s, and also, the more recent immigration under Tony Blair, which, a lot of it was from Eastern Europe, and it was a lot of it was people coming here to work hard and to contribute, and they were, culturally similar and assimilated well. And, for Brexit, for the establishment to turn round after the Brexit vote and say, oh, well, you're concerned about Eastern Europeans. How about boatloads of people from deeply alien cultures, some of them very misogynistic, some of them violent, with deeply antithetical ideas to what you hold, who don't integrate and form these ethnic enclaves. I've been on tour around the country doing my stand-up comedy tour, which has been extended into the autumn. If you want to get tickets, go to leopierce.com. But I've been speaking to people after the shows, and they've seen the changes in their town. And these are just regular people. You know, you can't dismiss people as, you know, being racist or bigots when they've seen these incredible changes in their towns that they haven't asked for, and they don't feel safe at night, and they're concerned about raising their children.
Well, I mean, I hear you. I hear exactly what you're saying. And
I'd have to say I don't feel very culturally assimilated, just for example, with football hooligans or white paedophiles or white racists. Or we've got plenty of issues with misogyny and all sorts of people, all sorts of issues like that of our own. Listen, you said a moment ago that the Reform have taken the Brexit vote with them. 52% of our country voted for Brexit. Reform are hovering around the mid-20s, late 20s, if we're being generous. So they've not taken anything like the whole Brexit vote. That's first point. Second point, I just want to put out a warning shout. Reform are coming up with some of the most balmy policies I've ever heard in my history of covering politics. For example, punishing electorates if they want to vote.
It's not a
Let me make the point.
How do you call it punishment? They don't. Asylum seekers in an area. You say they're enriching. You say they're enriching.
They won't be doing any enriching.
If they're near you,
they won't be doing any enriching because there'll be a detention centre. And the reason I'm saying this, let me make the point. The reason that it's difficult if I'm interrupted. The reason it's stupid as well as anti-democratic is, let's say you have a constituency that votes 40% Reform, but 45% Green, then Reform are punishing 40% of voters in that constituency. Their own voters. Their own voters.
Well,
it's deeply anti-democratic and profoundly
Don't talk over
stupid.
me, Matthew Stadlen. Be quiet. Right, stay with us. More coming up in the next hour. We'll be talking about Ukraine's capital city, Kyiv, which is under massive attack. More of that in just a moment. Stay tuned. Do not go anywhere. First, though, let's give you that weather update.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Rain this morning clears east, although lingers across eastern Scotland. Frequent showers for many following the rain, along with hail and thunder in places. Here's the main band of rain. During the next few hours, it clears its way into the North Sea, but a branch of the rain just lingers across east and northeast Scotland, and some more persistent rain for the south of Scotland. Elsewhere, frequent and heavy showers, gusty winds, hail and thunder mixed in. In between the showers, there will be some brighter spells and temperatures of 18 to 21 Celsius in the south, 15 to 17 further north. So a touch above average for the time of year, but not feeling very pleasant at all, where we're stuck under the rain clouds. And this area of rain just persists across the northeast of Scotland throughout the day, heavy at times. Towards the south and west of Scotland, it's driest, a few showers, and Northern Ireland will see plenty of downpours as the day comes to an end. England and Wales, in between showers, some brighter or clearer interludes, but plenty of cloud and also gusty winds, making it feel on the cool side. Now, we go into Tuesday night with those showers continuing in many places. They will ease towards the southwest for a time, but only ahead of the next weather system that's approaching by dawn, bringing another spell of persistent and heavy rain. Temperatures overnight not dropping too far, 12 to 14 in the south, 10 or 11 further north, more comfortable than many of the nights were last week for sleeping. But it's a wet start to the day across Northern Ireland, Wales and the southwest. The persistent rain here moves into central and eventually eastern parts of the UK by the afternoon. It's going to linger longest across Northern Ireland, but for Wales and the southwest, frequent heavy showers follow, and it's going to feel a bit cooler with gusty winds continuing.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it. Don't get this on the BBC. Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos. What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From court mornings
To warm family brunches.
from football to tennis in the car,
In the kitchen.
GB News breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again.
To start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I ever got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
And
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome. We are live from London. This is GB News with the stories shaping Britain and America. Tonight. Chaos is unfolding on the streets of Kenya as hundreds protest against planned US Ebola quarantine facility. But will it affect the World Cup? Now I'll be joined by a member of the Trump administration next. Also,
we'll have to just finish the job. They're negotiating on fumes.
the US president says that talks with Iran are continuing at a rapid pace despite both sides having exchanged fire in the last few days. And breaking right now, Ukraine's capital city, Kyiv, is under massive attack. 4 dead, 5 wounded. The mayor there has said that some parts have been left without power and a multi-storey residential building has been damaged with people trapped under the rubble. It's also believed that a fire has broken out in the building due to a missile strike. I'm Nana Akwe, and this is The Late Show Live. So welcome to The Late Show Live. Joining me this evening in London is my panel, GB News contributor and comedian Leo Kearse, political commentator Matthew Stadlen, also former advisor in number 10 Downing Street, Robert Midgley. And in Washington, D.C., we've got US political analyst Eric Ham and US political reporter for the Daily Mail, Victoria Churchill. Thank you for joining us tonight. All right, now let's move on to one of our main news stories this evening. Fears are growing that the next month's World Cup could become a public health headache as the deadly Ebola outbreak spreads in Central Africa. Now, more than 1,000 suspected cases have been reported in the DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo, with at least 246 deaths, while neighbouring Uganda has also confirmed cases. Public health officials in the US are now on high alert as the tournament will be played in more than half a dozen cities across North America and is expected to bring an estimated 5.5 million football fans to the continent from all over the world. Experts stress that the risk of an outbreak in the US remains low right now because the virus is not airborne and usually spreads through direct contact with someone seriously ill. Excuse me. Well, with me now is Assistant Secretary for Health in the US Department of Health and Human Services, Admiral Brian Christine. Brian, thank you very much for joining us this evening. Now, Brian, I'm somebody who's actually very concerned about this, that the World Cup could end up being a super spreader event, because let's bear in mind that Ebola is spread on surfaces with people who are potentially infected with the virus through faeces, through sick, through droplets or steam, if someone's in a steam room or something like that. But actually saying, I think, parts of the virus, which can be confused with malaria and meningitis and a few other things. So what is America going to do to try and protect the people that are going to the World Cup?
Well, thank you for having me on this evening. I truly appreciate the opportunity. I'll tell you, our administration, our primary goal is to make sure that the Ebola virus does not enter the United States. We certainly want to work with our international partners to end the outbreak at its source and to prevent Ebola from spreading to other countries. But our primary goal, of course, is to prevent the virus from entering the United States. I know that the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the State Department are working to ensure that the World Cup does not become a super spreader event. So I'm not worried about that.
You're not worried at all, really? I mean, the incubation period is 21 days. Do you have any areas where flights have been cancelled to ensure... Can people from the DRC come to the World Cup?
No, I know that, again, that the State Department and the Centers for Disease Control are working to make sure that anybody who enters the United States for the World Cup will be safe to enter. They have that well in control. They're thinking this through, and they're doing everything right to make the World Cup an event, a successful event for the United States and, of course, for the entire world, and to prevent a super spreader type occurrence as you're describing. So, no, I'm not concerned about that. They're really taking the precautions that are needed to protect our country and to protect the world and make it a great event. And it will be a great event.
So what precautions will you put in place to ensure that that doesn't happen?
No, they are carrying out proper screenings. They have advisories and such in terms of making sure that people who do enter the United States aren't going to be carrying the virus. So again, I'm not concerned. I think that's a very good question, but I want you to know that we feel good. We're not concerned about that, that the CDC, the State Department, they're doing everything right.
Isn't it that sort of level of, and I'm not being rude because I think it's a very sneaky virus, but in my view, that feels like a level of overconfidence that could be problematic, because remember, the virus takes 21 days to incubate. Then it kind of is disguised as other things because it starts off as just a cold and sore throat, which sounds like a cold, until the other symptoms can kick in. So then you can have the diarrhea and all the other things, and then potentially internal and then external bleeding. And at that point, you now know that it's something serious. But all the people that would have made contact with that person at that point, until it actually becomes something that they can identify as Ebola, could be exponential, really. And you've got a massive event like that where people are coming from all over the world. So it doesn't take much.
No, that's true. And this isn't overconfidence. Again, this is not hubris or overconfidence. This is simply knowing and trusting, again, our State Department and our Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, which is, again, probably, in my opinion, the best in the world at what they do. They're taking the necessary precautions.
OK. Well, look, I'm curious to see what those precautions will be. I hear that you some sort of... Will it be temperatures? Will it be actual tests for the virus? Just, a bit more specifics, if you have any more. That'd be good to know.
No. Those, again, the screenings and how those screenings are done and those kinds of assurances being taken to make sure that we don't have entry into the U.S. That's being coordinated through our Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the State Department, as I said. But again, this is not overconfidence, but it's certainly confidence in the capabilities of the experts in this country who are making sure that America is going to stay safe and making sure that those who come to America for this great event are going to be safe.
All right, thank you very much for that. That's Admiral Brian Christine. He is the Assistant Secretary for the Health in the US Department of Health and Human Services. Thank you very much. I wonder how that works.
Extraordinary, that interview.
Really? Thank you very much. I'll take it as a compliment.
I shared your concern that the Admiral didn't seem to have much detail on this. I mean, he kept saying about the State Department and the Centre for Disease Control. He didn't seem, for example, to know, he certainly didn't share with us, that last week, according to The Sun anyway, that the US banned non-citizens who had travelled to the DRC, to Uganda or South Sudan in recent weeks from entering the country. So that means that this sweeping travel ban means people can't have stepped foot in any of those nations for at least 21 days. So I remember I was a presenter on a national radio station. My producer was one of the first people in the country to notice this tiny little article about COVID. I think it was in January of 2020. And then within days, weeks, it had become this massive story that we just simply didn't anticipate. Our lives were turned upside down. And so just, look, we don't want to have misplaced anxiety, but I was slightly surprised by the answers given there to your question.
It's just Ebola, though.
Oh, yeah, just Ebola, yeah. Would you like some? Would you like some?
No,
come shake my hand.
The good news is Ebola doesn't really travel very easily. It can only be spread through direct bodily contact or contact with
surfaces
with fluids.
as well.
And surfaces.
Surfaces, so, you know,
So
just stay away from surfaces.
No.
Just don't go near surfaces for a while.
No, I think this is worrying because a lot of the time when people start to show the symptoms of the virus, they're on a plane or they're on some mode of transport where people can't get away. And I think it only really does take one person to... And those symptoms are quite severe, but quite sudden. So you could suddenly be taken by this thing. You'll be being sick. You'll be coughing, sneezing, spluttering, all the things, you know, going on the other side as well as potential...
I think it is more difficult to spread than COVID. So there is
no, that's only because it's not airborne. It's just not airborne.
We said only. It is more difficult to spread than COVID. However, it is much more deadly than COVID.
Also, it's not made up.
Well,
I'm not even going to engage. I'm just not going to engage with that because there'll be viewers whose family members have died as a result.
Yeah, I don't think that's fair. You know, because for some people it was a walk in the park. For others, it was a nightmare on Elm Street. So, you know. But quickly, Robert,
I do think you have to be quite realistic about this. Congo is a very isolated country. There's not many flights that actually go out to it, but it's
doesn't take many,
major hubs.
Does it take many though?
They know there's a problem there. They've dealt with this for decades now. They have specialist centres in the Congo across Central Africa.
No, I think no, they are. They're setting fire to some of the tents that have been put up there by Médecins Sans Frontières who are going there because they want to get the bodies of their loved ones because they have an interesting sort of burial ritual where they put them in the sea and then everyone comes around the body and everyone makes contact with the body and they want the body back to give the traditional burial. Now, these end up being super spreader events, and because
that's their culture, we shouldn't be imposing our values on other cultures.
But because the doctors from MSF are not allowing them to take the bodies, they're deciding to burn the centres because they're not happy about that, and they've been taking bodies away as well. And then some of those in those facilities who are ill, there was one story where some of them ran away because they thought that it's the white man and it's something odd, and they call the funerals the ghost funerals and things like that, and they're blaming Westerners for this particular
How quickly can
disease.
they get here to train British police?
Well, that's another question altogether. I don't really know what you're talking about, Leo. But but one of the queries that I had about this confidence with the Americans at the World Cup is that what about insurance? What happens there? Because I've got an insurance executive and Florida gubernatorial candidate, Frank J. Russo, joining me now. Are there any implications in terms of insurance? Because if America are that confident, are there any, you know, for example, if suddenly people can't fly, will people be able to be reimbursed or... Because I'm kind of thinking about the Strait of Hormuz, and the reason I'm thinking that is a lot of insurance companies would not insure the tankers if they're prepared to go through the Strait because we know that there are potential mines. So with this potential of infection and mass infection, are there any murmurings from insurance companies? Is there any impact for those sort of companies? Oh, I think you may be frozen. We'll come back to you because I think you're frozen.
First symptom.
It's the first symptom. No, I doubt it.
I think the one thing you can be sure of is if there were to be heaven forbid, a case of Ebola at the World Cup, I mean, that would spark, you imagine, really very challenging scenes.
Exactly. So there's over 5 million people going. Are you telling me that not one of those people could potentially have the Ebola virus? And I think to myself, it does only take one person to have that virus and have an attack of it there and then. And then the number of people who are within that vicinity, where they come from all over the world, different parts of the world, and then you've suddenly got this situation where contact tracing becomes very difficult, where, you know, suddenly, have you sterilised that surface? Is there somebody else there? And then, of course, it's quite quick from there on. I mean, and this is not a very nice fact about that particular virus, but with Ebola, it stays in semen for up to, I think it was 7 weeks. But with the rat virus, the rat virus, you know, the rat virus, up to, I think it was 7 years. 7 years. Right, let's try and get back to our US panel. Let's speak to political analyst Eric Ham and US political reporter for the Daily Mail, Victoria Churchill. Oh, Eric Ham, am I being a bit crazy and over-egging it? Do you think that actually there's nothing really to worry about? America have this under control?
Well, I think given the fact that we have seen the hantavirus on cruise ships and now you do have this Ebola outbreak in Africa, and the fact that you now have 48 teams, which is up from 32, and the fact that this is the first time we're seeing the World Cup being played over 3 countries simultaneously, I think every contingency needs to be addressed and certainly gamed out. And I think that's what we need to see. Now, unfortunately, your guest there from HHS did not really give a thorough examination or assessment of what the plan is in terms of how they will confront a potential global health outbreak at these games. But it's certainly something that needs to be looked at, not just in terms of an outbreak, a global health outbreak, but any other type of event that could be catastrophic for these games, given the fact that we're now seeing that the United States is at war in the Middle East. And of course, you do have these global health challenges that are now beginning to spread in different parts of the world as well.
Victoria, do you share my worry and the fact that it does feel that people are being a little bit lethargic over something that has a potential 50% mortality rate, where there's no treatment for it right now, we don't have a vaccine, and this is a global event, as Eric said, across many different countries with over millions of people coming from all over the world?
Well, of course, that's a good question. You know, please correct me if I'm wrong, Nana, but I believe you've got a bit of a healthcare background before your reporting days. So, you know, you definitely, I think, come at this from a perspective that many other journalists or reporters don't. But, you know, I also think that within the U.S., we are going to be taking many precautions to make sure that people are safe, both in terms of their health, but also in terms of, you know, just security threats. I know that's something that I've discussed a number of times on this show, is that, you know, that's another concern with things like TSA agents being down the numbers from the DHS shutdowns earlier this year. And so, you know, the Trump administration is going to be facing a number of threats, and I think that they're going to do their best to really make sure that they are taken care of with the number of resources that they have. And of course, as Eric pointed out, this is a contest that's going to be played not only in the US, but also across Canada and Mexico as well. And so I'm sure Americans hope that from our perspective, that our, you know, our neighboring countries will take equal protections for visitors, particularly if they're transiting from throughout North America, you know, maybe attending games in another country before coming to America or vice versa. And, you know, of course, we also need to make sure that as individuals, people that are attending the games are, you know, taking the precautions upon themselves, you know, talking about if they're not feeling well, sure that they're staying home or not traveling. I know I just got back from a vacation and it was on a cruise, and I know that just outside of the public areas as people were coming onto the boat, they were saying, if you're experiencing any respiratory or other symptoms, to alert members and to stay out and make sure that people were washing their hands and using the buffet and things like that. So there's a lot of things that people can do in terms of just common sense practices to limit exposure risk for themselves and others.
See, there was a word in there.
One thing that we
go on.
Yeah, but I think one thing also that I think could be, and that might be a unintended benefit, is we are seeing that a number of hotel rooms that FIFA had actually reserved for the games, people simply are not reserving at the rate that they had thought or hoped, that the prices might be too high for some people willing to travel to the United States for the games. So maybe the attendance that initially was expected might not be as high. They may not meet those goals, and perhaps that might be the difference between a potential outbreak and a successful games itself.
You see, I was just coming back to what I was going to say to Victoria. There was one word that you said: you hope the other countries will be taking the right precautions, and this is, I just feel that there is a level of lethargy about something that has quite a high fatality rate, so on roughly around about 30 to 50%, but then that means that there's a higher percentage for other people, but that brings the average down to about 50. And I just feel that people aren't taking it seriously, and I think we should be a little bit more cautious. So that's my thought on it anyway, because once it gets in there and it becomes embedded, then there's an issue, because that's the sort of thing that has the capacity, I think, to overrun medical facilities. But all right, thank you very much, Eric, and also Victoria, thank you very much. All right, now I want to come back to a story that we discussed earlier. This is about the research that is challenging the claim that Reform UK is simply riding a wave of protest votes. A major survey has found that the party's supporters are driven less by short-term frustration and more by deeply held views on issues like immigration, welfare and gender ideology. Now, the British Social Attitudes Survey found that Reform UK voters are more dissatisfied than the wider public with both the state and the country and their own finances. 6 in 10 say that they are very dissatisfied with the NHS, whilst more than a quarter say that they're struggling on their current household income. All right, well, joining me now, I've got my panel, Leo Kearse. Also, I've forgotten everyone's name, that was too late. Robert Midgley, I can't forget that one on the end. Matthew Stadlin, I can't forget that one. Robert Midgley, do you think that this is progressed from a progress vote to an actual serious move where people are thinking, I'm just sick of the others?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at what we discussed earlier about tax. We've got the highest tax burden we've ever had. For our lives, we're taxed hundreds of times from the moment we wake up to the moment we go to bed. You're surrounded by tax. Your clothes are taxed. Everything in your life is taxed. And people are fed up of it. People are wondering wherever other hard-earned money going to. They're looking at that payslip at the end of the month and they're thinking, I've got nothing left for myself. I can't even afford to go on holiday once a year or whatever. And even that's taxed as well. Yeah. And so I think people are really fed up of this and not having enough money just to get by and survive. And you look at places like the supermarkets where inflation has gone through the roof. They haven't brought those food prices down. They've got used to those food prices, and that's where a bit of government intervention might be quite useful, is just saying, look, we understand inflation has gone down slightly, so we need to bring down food prices too. It might make things a bit more bearable for people, but instead, people are going over to Reform and saying, you need to sort this out, and Reform saying, yes, we will sort it out.
That's a bit communist, isn't it?
What,
the state controlling food prices?
Well, no, but Rachel Reeves did try to, didn't she?
Well,
she tried to ask supermarkets.
To do it voluntarily.
Yeah, but she tried. But the fact that she even dared, and it backfired in her face, she tried to get supermarkets to keep prices low.
That's why we're picking up on it.
How much is a loaf of bread?
It's a lot of money for people. Listen, what I would say... It depends what loaf of bread you buy. How much is your loaf of bread?
I don't eat bread.
You don't.
How much is a loaf of bread?
Listen.
Roughly.
87p, isn't it?
Don't know.
It's about £1.45. I bought a loaf of bread today for that.
OK, well, there are different prices for loaves of bread.
Well, no, average.
What I would say...
It's 200 quid.
It's delicious, though.
It's very good, yeah.
What I would say is that the cost of living is a massive problem in this country. There's absolutely no doubt about it. But to simply say that we're overtaxed, we're taxed from the moment we get out to the tax the moment we get to bed, who's going to pay for the hospitals, the GPs, the schools, the roads,
they spend it so badly.
the police?
They spend it. This
that's
is not the
such
point.
an easy thing to say,
it's not an easy thing to say. It's a fact.
Of course it is. So what, should we just stop paying the tax then?
Listen, let me get to the point now.
Stop paying tax?
No, I want them to be more accountable for the way they're spending our money.
Well, they are. We can vote them out.
I don't want them paying for people coming across on the dinghies.
We can vote them out.
I don't want them paying for people coming across on the dinghies, and I don't want to pay for their hotels. I don't want to pay for all their food. I don't want to do that.
You can vote reform, and let's see what happens if you vote reform. With 8 MPs currently, imagine the number of chances they're going to have to get.
Well,
let me make the point, to be their candidates, to win a general election, or to become the biggest party of 250, 270 MPs as is possible.
Like the Labour
Just imagine the chaos that will happen. Nigel Farage is U-turning before he even gets into government. Let's hope he doesn't get into government.
He did that than do it when he gets
the idea that these guys have failed, or it can't get any worse. My goodness me, just wait and see.
I think you've got a point, Matthew, to be honest. Like, Nigel Farage has got a plan, and he's going to execute that plan. But I think the blob, the establishment that scuppered Liz Truss's, the civil service, that scuppered Liz Truss's stint in office by, spiking the price of borrowing.
What is his plan? What is his plan, Nigel Farage's plan?
Nigel Farage is going to hold that close to his chest until we need to know, Matthew.
So you just trust. You just trust that he's got a plan.
He's been going for decades, and he knows.
He's a brilliant
what he wants to do, and he knows he's going to have a chance.
As you know, Leo, because you're bright.
He knows he's going to have a chance and a mandate to do it when reform get in with a pretty crushing majority. What is going to be difficult, though, is that the blob will come after reform. They'll try to tank the bond markets. They'll make it as difficult as they possibly can. All the unions will be going on strike.
I thought half the unions were in favour of reform, we were learning, weren't they? Or a good percentage of them, anyway, over the last 24 hours.
Well, that's
reform making a lot of that.
Independent survey, Matthew.
What I would say to you, though, Leo, this is a very serious point. Farage is obviously a brilliant political operator. He's a really very effective political operator. Without him, there would have been no Brexit, right? Probably without Boris Johnson, there wouldn't have been either, but it was Farage's baby, Brexit. He's brilliant at destroying things. He wants to destroy the BBC.
Brexit wasn't destroyed by Farage. Brexit was destroyed by the blob who didn't want it to happen.
What he has no experience of is actually running stuff. He's not been in government.
Hold on.
And he's only got 7 MPs.
You've had a lot. So that's enough.
Just wait, we'll come back in 3 years' time if he wins.
No, hold on. Sorry. Have some manners, please. When I speak, you be quiet. It's quite simple. No, I don't. I'm not going to accept that. Keir Starmer, he didn't ever even talk about what he was planning to do. Everyone kept saying, what is his plan, what is his plan? He refused to say anything. The only reason he got the job was because he slipped under the radar because the Tory party was so bad. Because they were awful.
He slipped under the radar.
Let me finish, please. Keir Starmer slipped under the radar because people wanted to vote for anything else other than the disastrous Tory party, and there was no other option. Now, Keir Starmer did not...
reform.
Let me finish. Keir Starmer did not disclose what his plan was at all. That's because he didn't have one, and that was quite clear. So if you talk about Nigel Farage U-turning and changing his mind before he's even got into office, at least he's got ideas, he's rethinking them, and then coming up with better ideas. I'd rather that than he do it when he's in office.
Yeah, no, Nigel has been around for decades. I watched him when he was an MEP in Brussels, and the way he has changed throughout the years is actually quite an incredible thing to do. Like, he may have had those views 20 years ago, but he's changed. And we see that continued change. And I think once we see the manifesto, all will be laid bare for us to commentate. But, when you said about the BBC, I think most people watching this are probably watching us because they hate the BBC, and I'm very happy for BBC.
Millions and millions of people watch the BBC and get a lot out of it. I'm no particular defender of the entertainment side, but I think impartial news, I know you'll tell me it's not impartial. I worked there for 9 years and I bent over backwards trying to make sure that everything I was involved in was impartial.
But
and there's a space, there may be a space for GBNews. Why am I on GBNews,
though? The fact that you think it's partial means it's partial.
Yeah.
Not in the slightest, no. I organised...
see the impartiality, because what you think you're in the centre.
I worked in political programmes for years. I organised debate after debate after debate. I had my own private views of politics, although they actually receded into the background once as the BBC, because I was thinking so much in an impartial mindset. But whatever my views were, I never once, in 8.5 years, nearly 9 years at the BBC, did I tell anyone at the BBC what my politics were, because I thought it was absolutely vital that political journalism, particularly, but news journalism absolutely as well, was impartial and had a relentless focus on accuracy. Now, GB News has done very well, there's no doubt about it.
Even Sir Michael Grade...
You can have a GB News if you want it, but it doesn't mean that there isn't a vital role for an impartial broadcaster, which Nigel Farage seems to want to defund. He's brilliant at trashing things. He's got no experience of making things better.
Well, I think you're wrong. Sir Michael Grade even said today that the BBC is just bitter. All the complaints to Ofcom is just bitterness.
The BBC is not complaining to Ofcom.
The fact that the GB News is appealing to the majority in the country. And that's what the BBC should be doing.
GB News is
appealing to a certain number of viewers. I'm not sure it's appealing to the majority in the country. Yes.
Didn't the BBC refuse to give you a job in the end because of your left-wing bias?
The BBC...
That's what happened, isn't it? So they obviously knew what your political views were because you didn't get the job.
So I was at the BBC for nearly 9 years. I left the BBC, then I became political as presenter on LBC, economist at the Telegraph and so forth, and on social media, and I made my politics clear. I was then offered a job by the BBC, and the right-wing anti-cancel culture mob came after me and got me cancelled by complaining to the BBC. Why are they employing this socialist toff? And so the BBC panicked, and they said, we're not going to have you after all. And I lost 20 years, potentially, of income because of the anti-cancel culture right. I got it up to a point, though, but everyone has a digital footprint. I didn't do anything. I didn't say anything political after I'd been offered the job.
It's the first time I've ever heard of an upside to cancel culture.
It's good, isn't it?
It's because you're a hypocrite.
No, I don't think you should have been cancelled.
I don't know. I think it was good. About time they decided to cancel somebody on the left. It's only fair, don't you? All right. Well, right. What have we got next? Should we have a listen to Jeremy Clarkson? This is what he said about Reform and Labour earlier.
One part in particular that seems to be doing very well with the young farmers, that I do know. I mean, Caleb tells me all of his friends, all of them, are Reform. And I don't think there's a farmer alive who's Labour anymore. Beyond that, I couldn't really say what anybody else is thinking. I mean, this government is truly useless. We do know that. And is doing nothing for farming. In fact, being actually damaging to farming.
Well, you see, it doesn't surprise me that he has that view about this government because he's obviously got into farming. I think he tried to get in there, though, to as a loophole so that he could kind of, not be taxed on certain things. And then in the end, he then got into farming and actually really enjoyed it. So that's quite interesting.
But Nana, in October, the funny thing about Reform, touting about what Clarkson's been saying about farmers, in October, and I quote directly from Clarkson himself, as far as I know, this is a report of what he said. Nigel Farage rarely talks about the economy, and when he does, his numbers don't add up. He says he wants to cut taxes and increase spending by 150 billion quid. Huh? But before anyone can question his logic, he scuttles back up to his safe space and starts raging about small boats. That's what Clarkson said about Farage in October.
But I think the country knows that there's some bitter pills to swallow coming up, and I think it takes somebody, like Thatcher did as well, it takes somebody with the vision that Farage has for the country, to fix the country, to make people comfortable with, whatever it is, raising the pension age, whatever it is we need to balance the books and fix the country. I think there's a lot more we could be doing. The amount of welfare and the amount of people who are foreign citizens on welfare and with council flats, like the First Lady of Sierra Leone has a council flat in London. I mean, these aren't even needy people from overseas. This is like the wife of the President of Sierra Leone.
People who come over here, not talking about I don't know about that case, but the people who come over here as immigrants and they work hard, And then they need, at some point, 10, 15, 20 years into playing their part in society, guess what? Some of them will need benefits, some of which will, by the way, be in work.
Are they
Do you want them on the street? Do you want to suddenly start deporting them?
No,
thank you. No,
yes.
no.
You go back.
Yes.
There are not many countries that will allow you, if you can't afford to live there and you're not a national.
Once you've been here for a significant
Sorry, I'm
amount of
talking.
time.
Don't interrupt me. It doesn't matter how long. If they're not a citizen of this country or they haven't chosen to apply for citizenship and then they come on hard times when they've been here, there are very few countries that will just say, hey, let's give you some benefits and help you out. Let me finish. Well, then they'll have to go back with their children.
Right, so the children born here?
You suggest they leave their children here?
No, so the children who are born... I'm saying don't deport the parents when they've had children born in this country.
Yeah, but
Thank you very much.
But the children will have to
outrageous suggestion.
The children will have to go with the parents, obviously.
And I'm saying that's what I'm obviously saying. Don't deport the parents if it means deporting the children.
So you think the children should have to stay here then?
I think the parents shouldn't be deported. I said that for the third time.
Well, if the parents haven't become citizens, then I don't see why they shouldn't go back even if their kids are British. So what?
Because their kids are British, that's the answer. What do you mean, so what? You think it's just send a 7-year-old who only knows this country to be deported because their parents fall on harder times and need some welfare?
Some of these countries are wonderful.
And go and live in them then.
I'm constantly hearing about how despicable and racist and horrible Britain is. So I think it would actually be quite a humanitarian.
Britain's a great country. It's a great country.
Some people in countries that would be more amenable.
Didn't the law change as well? The law changed in 1981 as well, didn't it? So that you're not, just because you're born here, you're not immediately a citizen of this country. I know that. So my point is this: if you're here and you're not a national and your kids are British in terms that they were born in the UK and you don't have means to pay for yourself, then I'm afraid you have to go back to the country that you came from. I don't see what the problem is.
I do. It's called child cruelty. Child cruelty, yeah.
It's not child cruelty.
Of course it is.
Well, going back to your own country, you might...
It's not their own country. They're born here. They're brought up here.
Doesn't mean you're a refugee.
If you're born and brought up here, you shouldn't be kicked out because your parents who are working hard need some help with their housing or whatever it is, or their PIP.
We do it to people who aren't working hard. So we're agreed.
No, I don't think we should be deporting people. I don't think we should be deporting people who'd be contributing to this country.
It's not deporting them. It's a social contract that they've made.
It's what they want.
No, it's a social contract with what they've made. When they come to this country, the idea is that you can support yourself and your dependents.
Yes.
If you can no longer support yourself and your dependents, and you're not a British national, then you go back. It's not horrible. And some of them may have left their countries not fleeing some persecution. They may have just left because they wanted to have an experience somewhere else.
Do you have any idea of the real-world consequences of ripping an 8-year-old child out of their school and say, go and live in a country you've never lived in? Go and talk to these people, think it through. This is part of the problem with reform politics. Don't think it. No, I wouldn't. I've just told you 4 times now. I wouldn't deport the parent. Because, at least partly, because the child would then have to be deported.
But you won't be in charge.
I'm certainly not running for office, no, but I do my best fighting back against this nonsense, which is why I come on the channel.
Well, thank you very much for that, Matthew. It's good to have a little bit of nonsense, so thank you for joining us. Right, still ahead on The Late Show Live. Breaking right now, Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, is under massive attack. 4 dead, 11 wounded. The mayor there has said that some parts have been left without power, and a multi-storey residential building has been damaged with people trapped under the rubble. We'll bring you the latest soon, but first...
We'll have to just finish the job. They're negotiating on fumes.
The US President Donald Trump talks with Iran, said that talks with Iran are continuing at a rapid pace, despite both sides having exchanged fire in the last few days. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Rain this morning clears east, although lingers across eastern Scotland. Frequent showers for many following the rain, along with hail and thunder in places. Here's the main band of rain. During the next few hours, it clears its way into the North Sea, but a branch of the rain just lingers across east and northeast Scotland, and some more persistent rain for the south of Scotland. Elsewhere, frequent and heavy showers, gusty winds, hail and thunder mixed in. In between the showers, there will be some brighter spells and temperatures of 18 to 21 Celsius in the south, 15 to 17 further north. So a touch above average for the time of year, but not feeling very pleasant at all, where we're stuck under the rain clouds. And this area of rain just persists across the northeast of Scotland throughout the day, heavy at times. Towards the south and west of Scotland, it's drier, still a few showers, and Northern Ireland will see plenty of downpours as the day comes to an end. England and Wales in between showers, some brighter or clearer interludes, but plenty of cloud and also gusty winds, making it feel on the cool side. Now we go into Tuesday night with those showers continuing in many places. They will ease towards the southwest for a time, but only ahead of the next weather system that's approaching by dawn, bringing another spell of persistent and heavy rain. Temperatures overnight not dropping too far, 12 to 14 in the south, 10 or 11 further north, more comfortable than many of the nights were last week for sleeping. But it's a wet start to the day across Northern Ireland, Wales and the southwest. The persistent rain here moves into central and eventually eastern parts of the UK by the afternoon. It's going to linger longest across Northern Ireland, but for Wales and the southwest, frequent heavy showers follow, and it's going to feel a bit cooler with gusty winds continuing.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good evening and welcome to The Late Show Live with me, Nana Acquia. Now, US President Donald Trump told ABC News on Monday that he thinks that there will be a deal with Iran to extend the ceasefire and reopen the Strait of Hormuz over the next week. That is according to a post from X. The president also says that he held productive talks with the Prime Minister, Israel's Prime Minister, and Iran-backed Hezbollah in an attempt to secure a truce in Lebanon after Iran's state TV says that it would collapse unless Israel stopped its attacks. Right, with me now is the Editor-in-Chief at the Foreign Desk, Lisa Daftari. Lisa, what can you tell us? What on earth is going on? Because Donald Trump had it all under control. They were just about to agree the talks. Everything was apparently a ceasefire. Now they're exchanging fire. The Strait of Hormuz is still shut. What's going on?
We'd like to believe that Donald Trump still has it under control. We may not know all the details publicly, but behind the scenes, he assures us that things are moving forward. But what we are seeing is a strategic attempt by the regime, who has always been duplicitous for 5 decades, to try to move the attention off of what they don't want to focus on. So, for example, they moved the theater of war to Hormuz rather than their nuclear program. They're trying to focus on the end of the war and not on the end of their nuclear program. And now they want the United States and Israel to treat Hezbollah's attack on Israel as separate from the Islamic Republic itself. It is a proxy of the Islamic Republic, meaning they are breaking the ceasefire. And then when they want to blame Israel, they say that Israel has to stop firing because a ceasefire means to control Israel as well, meaning the United States needs to stop Israel as well. So they're very, very, very shrewd and very much able to shift narrative to win over global support, to change the narrative of the war, and of course to change the theater of the war so that it will benefit them in the long run, where they are buying time, hopefully getting money up front and getting sanctions loosened. Now, the good thing about the deal that's on the table right now is that there is no upfront, giving them all these concessions, meaning the loosening of sanctions or the billions in cash that we saw in previous administrations. This is where the regime knows that it could win over the United States in previous administrations. The nuclear table, the negotiation table, is where they have done very well, and they're hoping to do as well again this time around.
Well, how have we come to the place where Israel is being seen as the enemy? It's some sort of they've done some sort of weird capturing of people's minds to try and make it look like that Israel are the perpetrator of all this. When in reality, we all know that Iran has been attacking Israel through proxies, as you said. The Hamas, the Houthis, Hezbollah, everything beginning with an H. Israel has been fighting this on all fronts. repeatedly, consistently, which is why it has such an incredible defence system, the Iron Dome, the David Sling, the Arrow system, everything that you could possibly do. They're experts in drone technology, and they are leaders in arms, and they know how to protect themselves, even though they're the size of whales. Now, I don't know what's happened, why we appear to be, or others around seem to be ideologically captured with the notion that Israel is causing this.
Yeah, this is exactly the results of not just this round of war, but decades of narrative warfare right here on American soil. This is where the Americans have to start connecting the dots, because guess what? The media won't do it for us. Our universities won't do it for their students. Our government won't do it for us. And that is the issue here. This is elite capture, exactly the way you framed it. For years, Iran's regime hasn't just blamed Israel, but when you saw the encampments on college campuses, when you saw the protests in places like Toronto and London and New York and Los Angeles, where they weren't just blaming Israel, they were actually showing support for Hamas and Hezbollah, you see how far the narrative warfare has gone, where they have inserted themselves in all sectors of society, private and public, to win over hearts and minds. They don't have to fire a single shot. What they've done is they have convinced people that they are the winners. They have convinced people that their way or their purpose is justified. And look at all the useful idiots in the West, all over Europe, all over the United States, all over Canada, that are doing their bidding for them for free. Look at the media, whatever Donald Trump does, whether we agree with him or not. This is the United States of America, meaning if we do not stand behind our flag, our country, we are weakened here. That affects our national security, that affects our homeland security, that affects every single person who lives on American soil. So it's not just about the man who lives in the White House. It is about every administration that comes after him. It is about all of our assets around the world, and people just don't understand that. They're just captivated and are being really used for this purpose of furthering the agenda of the Islamic Republic, which began 47 years ago. They truly did a fantastic job at narrative warfare. Now, my area of expertise, that which I've focused on for years, includes really encouraging the American public to not only question fake news, not only question your social media feeds, but also for the government to start using strategic communications inside and outside our country.
Do you know what? I just don't get it. I mean, if you gave me the choice who I would like to sort of run things, either Donald Trump or Mujtaba Khomeini, who I don't know whether he's got one eye, one leg, one arm, or whatever it is, because I don't even know whether he's even alive. It'd be quite an easy choice, but somehow, somewhere, the narrative has been skewed, and the attack is on Donald Trump for even attempting to create some level of peace or to stop the regime from getting arms or, you know, getting nuclear weapons. And also, I think he's trying to stop China from getting oil. Let's be clear about that one as well. Listen, Lisa, it's been really good to talk to you. That's Lisa Daftari. She is the editor-in-chief at the Foreign Desk. Thank you very much. All right, well, let's bring in the US panel and see what they think of that. Eric Ham and also Victoria Churchill. Victoria, do you feel there's, you know, Donald Trump, do you feel he's actually doing something that needs to be done? And, you know, even though a lot of people are saying he's doing it in a bit of a ham-fisted way, he's doing something that everyone else was basically too scared to get involved in.
Well, Iran has been a threat to Americans for over 47 years, so I think that it is time for somebody to get involved and try to put an end to the regime. I think those were the promises that were made at the beginning of this conflict, and I'm not sure if they've entirely played out right. The successor of the Ayatollah is his son, who of course has been seen seldom, if at all, publicly, and so I think particularly some of the Iranian Americans Americans or descendants of those who lived in Iran during the revolution that are now here in America, they have figured out, or I think they may even be a little bit frustrated with what they've seen, whether the U.S. intervention in this, I think they thought that they were going to get something much more significant out of it than what we've seen before. So I think that is part of a reason why Trump is having this increased pressure. But he's also, of course, facing pressure domestically. Of course, we heard at the beginning of this conflict that this was going to last 4 to 6 weeks. It has gone on far beyond that. Americans are feeling pain at the pump for gas prices, particularly tied to the situation in the Strait of Hormuz. And I think that is reflecting in the president's poll numbers. We've done polling at the Daily Mail, which has shown for several times in a row now throughout the course of this conflict that Trump's approval level has been lower and lower pretty much every single time that we've done it. And of course, he's got the midterm elections coming up. Some of his picks in some of these very tight contests have been questionable, to say the least. And if Republicans hope to maintain control of the House and the Senate, I think it is better for them that Trump wraps up this conflict sooner rather than later.
Well, nobody really believed that it would be over in 4 to 6 weeks or 4 to 8 weeks. They extended it, didn't they, after a bit when they realised that 4 weeks was craziness. But Eric Ham, your thoughts on this?
Well, I think you're right that there were a lot of presidents, global leaders from the West who always saw Iran as a threat and certainly wanted to do something, but know that the intractable challenge would have always been the fact that they know Iran would simply close the Strait of Hormuz, and that was something that would be very difficult for the United States and other countries to get around. And we see that Iran has done just that. And we also are now recognizing the consequences of what it means to the global economy. And while President Donald Trump is right that the United States has exacted a heavy price on Iran militarily, what we continue to see is that Iran's missile program as well as its drone program have been especially potent in their ability to cripple U.S. installations in the region as well as U.S. allies. And so I think what we're seeing right now is President Donald Trump is trying to negotiate an agreement, and he's trying to do it, unfortunately, by Truth Social, which, quite frankly, isn't actually bearing any fruit for the president. While there is negotiations, it seems as though it's back and forth. President Donald Trump seems to have a very difficult time trying to get a handle on Benjamin Netanyahu. We are aware of the heated exchange that they had as recently as today. But nevertheless, this has extracted a very, very heavy price on Americans who are now paying for it at the pump. And this is going to cost the president politically. And the problem for Donald Trump is his reasoning for why the United States did this has continued to change and shift over time. And now we're seeing even members of his own party, particularly Senate Republicans, are now pushing back on this president, unwilling to give him greater authorization on this war. And it's anyone's guess when it will end, because we continue to think that a deal is near, but yet we often see either the president walking away or Iran itself walking away, and it's unclear where this thing is headed at this point.
It's a tricky one, though. It's quite difficult to do deals with regimes like that. It was a risk always. But, I mean, he was brave enough to go in and give it a go. All right, thank you very much to both of you. Let's have a chat with the London panel now. Leo and Matthew and also Robert. Right, who wants to have a quick dive into this?
Just a point about fuel prices, which fits in with what we were talking about earlier with the cost of living. 3 months now it's been since this war began, and I was in two minds about it, because I certainly don't want Iran to get a nuclear weapon, and the Iranian people suffered unbelievably at the hands of the evil regime. However, you wanted this war to be won, and winning it meant actually properly degrading Iran's capacity to build nuclear weapons. It's not clear to me that that has been achieved, even though they've bombed lots of infrastructure to bits. Trump seems to have made a miscalculation. He's dealing with a terrorist state. And guess what terrorists do? They threaten you, and they brought the Strait of Hormuz to a standstill. So the cost of our petrol now is about 30p or whatever it is, more than it was 3 months ago. And we were talking about the cost of Brent earlier on.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Oh, please.
Right under our feet. We
Come
can
off
get all
it.
this
Stupid.
pet
It won't make it
from the
cheaper.
North Sea
Won't make it
from
cheaper.
our
You don't know
shale
that.
oil.
No, we do know that. It won't make it cheaper.
No.
It might help our economy marginally, but it won't help,
When we get to the point
help the prices.
countries start making their energy national, not exporting it because it's so needed.
Yeah, well, I think it would make a difference. I think you can change the rules and you can do something different. You don't have to do something the same way it's always been done just because it's always been done that way. But meanwhile, in Europe, Ukraine is under massive attack. 25 dead, 20 wounded. The mayor of Kyiv, Vitaly Klitschko, has said that there has been some parts of the city that have been left without power and other buildings damaged, people trapped under rubble. All right, Leo Kurs.
Yeah, so I mean, this is Russia lashing out. Ukraine has quietly been almost winning the war. They've pretty much cut off the land corridor that goes from Rostov-on-Don all the way down to Kherson. So that's pretty much under drone control. So Russia can't get troops, can't get reinforcements, logistics down to reinforce that front, which means that the front down at Zaporozhye looks like it could crumble for the Russians. And also, Ukraine has been doing incredibly well at taking out Russian refineries all over the country. You know, as far as way in the east, 1,400 kilometres away, places like Taganrog. And hitting airfields as well, and as a result, and also hitting Moscow and completely degrading Russia's air defences. So to sort of lash back at that, Putin is dumping incredibly expensive ballistic missiles and cruise missiles, Kinzhals, things like that cost $10 million each, dumping them in Kyiv and taking out things like vegetable markets, which don't have much strategic value. So it's really a sign of Putin's weakness.
All right, Robert, final word to you quickly, 20 seconds.
Ballistic missiles are very difficult to defend against. Israel do it very well because they've got the Iron Dome. But like you said, that Ukraine is making big leagues into, let's say, Crimea and really cutting off that whole region now, and people are getting a bit worried about that on the Russian side. And I think Putin's just getting very desperate now, and I think that's why that is happening. And I hope that Ukraine win out of all of this.
Well, apparently he's been using a lot of the children, training them, the children that he took from Ukraine, Putin, and training them to fight on the front for Russia. That's one of the articles that I read a little while ago. So, it's not a great thing. But I really just don't get Vladimir Putin. He's not going to get Ukraine. He's not going to get the whole of it. He's going to end up making a real mess of it and destroying Russia, I think, in the process. Final word to you, Matthew Staton. Can you do it in 10 seconds or maybe 15?
Putin is a very, 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 very bad man.
Crikey. It's been interesting, hasn't it? Very interesting indeed. But look, I've got to say thank you very much for your company. Thank you to Eric and also Victoria in Washington, D.C. Thank you to my brilliant panel, Leo Kurs, Matthew Stadland, and also Robert Midgley. Thank you very much. Now, listen, loads more still to come as well. Always like to hear your thoughts on The Late Show Live. I'm back tomorrow. I'm going to do it all over again. I know you're thinking, when will that woman go away and sleep? You want to get rid of me, don't you? You do, don't you? Matthew Stadland, he hates me, can't stand the sight of me. I think he sort of took one look and thought, oh, God, it's her. Yeah, well, it'll be me tomorrow as well. So, look, I look forward to seeing you tomorrow, same time, same place. I'll be back for another edition of The Late Show Live. Midnight in the UK, 7 p.m. Eastern. Enjoy your evening.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Rain this morning clears east, although lingers across eastern Scotland. Frequent showers for many following the rain, along with hail and thunder in places. Here's the main band of rain. During the next few hours, it clears its way into the North Sea, but a branch of the rain just lingers across east and northeast Scotland, and some more persistent rain for the south of Scotland. Elsewhere, frequent and heavy showers, gusty winds, hail and thunder mixed in. In between the showers, there will be some brighter spells and temperatures of 18 to 21 Celsius in the south, 15 to 17 further north. So a touch above average for the time of year, but not feeling very pleasant at all, where we're stuck under the rain clouds. And this area of rain just persists across the northeast of Scotland throughout the day, heavy at times. Towards the south and west of Scotland, it's drier, still a few showers, and Northern Ireland will see plenty of downpours as the day comes to an end. England and Wales in between showers, some brighter or clearer interludes, but plenty of cloud and also gusty winds, making it feel on the cool side. Now we go into Tuesday night with those showers continuing in many places. They will ease towards the southwest for a time, but only ahead of the next weather system that's approaching by dawn, bringing another spell of persistent and heavy rain. Temperatures overnight not dropping too far, 12 to 14 in the south, 10 or 11 further north, more comfortable than many of the nights were last week for sleeping. But it's a wet start to the day across Northern Ireland, Wales and the southwest. The persistent rain here moves into central and eventually eastern parts of the UK by the afternoon. It's going to linger longest across Northern Ireland, but for Wales and the southwest, frequent heavy showers follow, and it's going to feel a bit cooler with gusty winds continuing.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me. Do you trust what you're being told? Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that, because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
Needs to stop. You think we can allow?
Politics, policy, parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, though. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I ever got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you. Bulletins on GB News,
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The GB News audience is different, it's unique, because they see through the nonsense.
We want to debate with each other, we want to listen and maybe learn.
We have a chat
That's what we do. We try and have a chat.
They'll watch my programme while they're eating their tea. They'll watch breakfast while they're busy getting their kids ready for school.
We want to hear what matters to you. What is news for you?
And what's brought you out here today?
What are the biggest issues affecting this particular area?
The audience are the best thing about GB News.
Their friends, their family.
They're people who need to have their voices heard.
They're passionate about the channel, they're passionate about what they believe in.
The one thing about GB News is you get a chance to speak.
Talk to me about why so many people have gathered here today.
Do you want to say something back in return? The GB News audience is what makes GB News special.
It's incredible to see.
They shape our programmes, they shape our output, and they shape our channel.
That's what makes us the fearless champion of Britain.
It's 9 p.m. I'm Patrick Christie's. Tonight,
He was pulled across the gravel, his hands forced behind his back, and he was placed in handcuffs.
the police need to be prosecuted over Henry Novak's death. Also tonight,
I am sorry. Sorry for what was done to you. Sorry that so many people with power failed you. Sorry for having believed Mandelson's lies and appointed him.
damning revelations in the Peter Mandelson files that emerged today. They show that Labour have been looking at who they can tax just so they can give out more and more benefits. Plus,
where the motorhome was round the side of the house, which is not immediately visible in the way that we went into the house. And it's between their house and the next door neighbour's house.
Nicola Sturgeon's story is falling apart.
Because Mrs. Murrell's house is the first house in the street, it's not easy to miss, especially when there is a big camper van in the driveway.
Yes, and will she now have her house taken off her?
Should donors to the SNP whose money was spent criminally get their money back? And would you contribute to that in some way?
What do you mean, would I contribute to that in some way?
Can't wait to talk about that. In other news...
So if there's a white gang of people who are raping people, arrest them. If there's a bunch of super powerful people who are raping American girls, arrest them. This is all super simple.
Well, is Labour killing free speech? More people